Deep within the quiet corners of the heart lies a garden that remains untouched by the shifting seasons of the world. It is a place where the air is always still and the light never fades even when the sky outside turns a heavy shade of gray. Many people wander through their entire lives searching for a home or a sanctuary in the physical world, moving from one city to another or seeking comfort in the arms of others, yet they often overlook the most resilient shelter they possess. This inner sanctuary is not built of brick and mortar but of awareness and gentle understanding. It is the silent space between two thoughts and the soft breath that anchors the spirit when the winds of anxiety begin to howl. Building this place does not require us to travel to a distant mountain or sit in a cave for years on end. It starts right here in the middle of our messy and complicated lives by simply acknowledging that there is a part of us that remains forever whole and peaceful. When we begin to cultivate this internal landscape, we realize that our happiness no longer has to be a hostage to external circumstances. We can be in the middle of a crowded street or facing a difficult conversation at work and still feel a sense of rootedness. This is because the sanctuary is not a destination we go to but a state of being we carry with us. There was once a young seeker who spent many years traveling across vast lands to find a teacher who could show him the secret of true peace. He climbed high peaks and crossed dangerous rivers, believing that the further he went, the closer he would get to the truth. One day, he found an old monk sitting by a small stream, looking at the water with a smile that seemed to contain the entire universe. The young man rushed over and asked how he could find the ultimate refuge from the suffering of the world. The monk did not point to the temple on the hill or to a sacred scripture. Instead, he picked up a small stone from the stream and handed it to the seeker, asking him if the stone felt the coldness of the water or the heat of the sun. The young man replied that the stone simply was what it was, unaffected by the changing temperature. The monk nodded and told him that the human heart is like that stone. We spend so much energy trying to change the temperature of the world, trying to make things warmer or cooler to suit our desires, when the real secret is to find the quality of the stone within ourselves. This does not mean becoming cold or unfeeling but rather developing a center that is so solid and clear that the fluctuations of life cannot shatter it. This solidity comes from the practice of returning to the present moment with a sense of warmth. We often treat our own minds like a battlefield, fighting against our thoughts and trying to suppress our fears. But a sanctuary cannot be built on a foundation of conflict. If we want to create a space of peace, we must first learn to be peaceful with our own restlessness. When a storm arises in our mind, we can look at it with the same curiosity and kindness we would show to a small child who is afraid of the dark. We do not need to judge the storm or try to push it away. We simply sit with it and breathe. Each breath is a thread in the fabric of our inner temple. As we inhale, we gather our scattered pieces, and as we exhale, we let go of the need for things to be different than they are. This simple act of breathing is the most powerful tool we have for reclaiming our inner space. It reminds us that no matter how loud the world becomes, there is always a rhythmic, quiet pulse beneath the surface that knows exactly how to sustain us. In the ancient times, there was a group of practitioners who lived in a forest that was known for its unpredictable weather and wild animals. Many people wondered how they could remain so calm in such a dangerous environment. One of the practitioners explained that they did not see the forest as something separate from themselves. They understood that the trees, the wind, and even the tigers were all part of the same vast interconnected web. Instead of building high walls to keep the world out, they built a vastness within their hearts that could hold the entire forest. When we expand our hearts to include everything, there is no longer anything that can truly threaten our peace. The walls of our inner sanctuary are not made of exclusion but of a profound inclusion. We welcome our sadness, our joy, our fatigue, and our inspiration. By giving everything a place to exist without judgment, we find that the very things we once feared become part of the scenery of our inner world. They lose their power to disturb us because we have stopped fighting them. The beauty of this journey is that it is available to everyone, regardless of their background or their history. Many of us carry heavy burdens of regret or worry about the future, feeling that we are somehow disqualified from experiencing peace. We think that we need to fix ourselves first or become a better version of ourselves before we can enter the sanctuary. But the truth is that the sanctuary is exactly where we go to heal. It is the hospital of the soul. We do not need to be perfect to sit in the light of our own awareness. In fact, it is often through our cracks and our vulnerabilities that the light is able to enter. There is a story of a woman who felt she had failed in every aspect of her life and went to a wise teacher, crying that she was too broken to ever find peace. The teacher took her to a garden and showed her a flower that had grown through a crack in the paved ground. The flower was small but vibrant, reaching for the sun despite the hard concrete surrounding it. The teacher told her that the crack was not a sign of weakness but the very reason the flower was able to find the light. Our difficulties are often the very openings we need to begin building our inner refuge. As we move through our days, we can start to notice the moments when we lose touch with this inner space. It usually happens when we get caught up in the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what the world owes us. We start to believe that we are our roles, our titles, or our bank accounts. When these things are threatened, our sense of safety collapses. But these are just external decorations. The true structure of the sanctuary is built on the understanding of impermanence. When we realize that everything in the outer world is constantly changing, we stop trying to lean on things that are inherently unstable. We find our balance not by grabbing onto something solid in the world but by learning how to flow with the changes. It is like standing in the middle of a river. If we try to hold on to the rushing water, we will be swept away. But if we learn to swim and trust the buoyancy of our own spirit, we can move with the current without being overwhelmed by it. This trust is not something that happens overnight. It is a slow and deliberate cultivation. We start by carving out small pockets of stillness throughout our day. It could be the moment we wake up before we check our phones, or the few seconds we spend waiting for the kettle to boil. In those brief moments, we check in with ourselves. We ask how the heart is feeling and we listen to the answer without trying to fix it. This act of listening is a form of love. It is the way we show ourselves that we are worthy of our own attention. Most of us are very good at taking care of others and making sure their needs are met, but we are often the last people on our own list of priorities. Building an inner sanctuary is an act of radical self-compassion. It is deciding that we deserve a place where we can just be, without having to perform or achieve anything. There was a disciple who asked a great master why some people seemed to be naturally happy while others struggled so much. The master led the disciple to a field where many different types of birds were nesting. He pointed out that some birds built their nests with very fragile materials on low branches where they were easily disturbed by the wind and predators. Other birds sought out the highest, most stable branches and used strong, flexible twigs to weave a home that could withstand the fearless storms. The master said that the difference between people is not in the amount of trouble they face, but in how they build their nest. If we build our sense of self on the low branches of social approval or material success, we will always be at the mercy of the wind. But if we weave our inner home with the threads of wisdom and mindfulness, we can sit safely even when the world around us is in chaos. To weave these threads of wisdom, we must become students of our own minds. We begin to observe the patterns of our thoughts and the way they trigger our emotions. We notice how a single negative thought can spiral into a day of gloom if we are not careful. By becoming a witness to these patterns, we create a distance between our true self and the mental chatter. We realize that we are the sky, and the thoughts are just clouds passing through. The clouds can be dark and heavy, or light and fluffy, but they never change the fundamental nature of the sky. The sky is always there, vast and blue, regardless of what is happening in the atmosphere. This realization is a cornerstone of our inner sanctuary. It gives us the freedom to let thoughts come and go without being defined by them. We no longer have to be afraid of our own minds because we know that no matter how intense a thought may be, it is ultimately empty and temporary. In one of the old stories, a man was being chased by a fierce beast across a vast plain. He saw a well and jumped into it to escape, hanging onto a vine that grew along the side. As he hung there, he looked down and saw a dragon waiting at the bottom of the well to eat him. Then he looked up and saw two mice, one black and one white, gnawing away at the vine he was clinging to. At that moment, he saw a few drops of honey dripping from a beehive above. He reached out his tongue and tasted the honey, and for a moment, he forgot all about the beast, the dragon, and the mice. This story is often used to illustrate the human condition, where we are caught between the past and the future, with time constantly eroding our lives. But there is another way to look at it. The honey represents the small moments of beauty and grace that are available to us even in the middle of peril. Building an inner sanctuary means training ourselves to recognize and savor that honey. It means finding the joy in a single breath or the warmth of the sun on our skin, even when we are aware of the challenges that surround us. When we focus on the honey, we are not ignoring the dragon or the beast. We are simply choosing not to let them consume our entire experience. This is the art of selective attention. We can acknowledge the difficulties of our lives while still making space for peace. This is not a form of escapism, but a way of gathering the strength we need to face our problems. A person who is well rested and calm is much more capable of solving a crisis than someone who is panicked and exhausted. By retreating into our inner sanctuary for even a few minutes, we recharge our spirits and gain a fresh perspective. We return to the world with a clearer mind and a more open heart. This inner peace then begins to radiate outward, affecting the people around us. When we are at peace with ourselves, we are less likely to react with anger or judgment toward others. Our inner sanctuary becomes a gift not just to ourselves, but to everyone we encounter. There is a profound sense of relief that comes when we stop looking for external validation and start trusting our own inner compass. We spend so much of our energy trying to live up to the expectations of our parents, our bosses, and society at large. We wear masks and play roles, hoping that if we do everything right, we will finally be happy. But this is a house built on sand. The only way to find true security is to go inward and discover who we are beneath the labels. This discovery is a gradual unfolding. It is like peeling an onion, layer by layer, until we reach the core. At the center of our being, there is a profound silence that is full of potential. This silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of a deep, vibrating peace. It is the source of our creativity, our intuition, and our capacity for love. When we learn to access this silence, we have found the very heart of our sanctuary. Imagine a lake on a very windy day. The surface is choppy and the water is muddy, making it impossible to see anything beneath the surface. But if the wind stops and the water becomes still, the mud settles to the bottom and the lake becomes clear as a mirror. We can see the fish swimming and the plants growing on the lake bed. Our minds are often like that wind-tossed lake. We are so busy and distracted that we cannot see our own true nature. But through the practice of creating an inner sanctuary, we allow the winds of distraction to die down. We let the mud of our confusion settle. In that stillness, we see ourselves clearly for the first time. We see that we are much more than our problems or our fears. We see that we have an inherent dignity and a vast capacity for wisdom that has always been there, just waiting for the water to clear. In the tradition of the elders, there was a monk who was tasked with guarding the gate of a monastery. He sat there every day, watching people come and go, but he never seemed to be bored or restless. When someone asked him how he could stay so content in such a simple job, he said that he was not just guarding a physical gate. He was guarding the gate of his own senses. He watched his eyes to see what they were looking at, his ears to see what they were listening to, and his mind to see what it was thinking. By being a mindful guardian of his own inner world, he found that every moment was full of interest and meaning. He did not need to go anywhere else to find adventure because the most fascinating journey was happening right inside him. This is the essence of building an inner sanctuary. It is being present for our own lives, moment by moment, with a sense of wonder and care. We can apply this guardian mentality to our modern lives by being more intentional about what we allow into our mental space. In an age of constant information and digital noise, our inner sanctuary is easily cluttered with the opinions and anxieties of others. We can choose to limit our consumption of things that disturb our peace and instead seek out things that nourish our souls. This might mean spending more time in nature, reading books that inspire us, or engaging in meaningful conversations with friends. Every choice we make is either adding a stone to the walls of our sanctuary or taking one away. By being mindful of our choices, we take responsibility for our own well-being. We realize that peace is not something that happens to us, but something we actively participate in creating. There was a story about a master who was known for his incredible patience. A man who wanted to test him went to the monastery and began to insult the master with every foul word he could think of. He shouted and screamed for hours, but the master just sat there, listening with a calm and gentle expression. Finally, the man became exhausted and asked how the master could stay so calm in the face of such abuse. The master asked the man, "If you offer someone a gift and they do not accept it, who does the gift belong to?" The man replied that it would still belong to the person who tried to give it. The master smiled and said that since he did not accept the man's insults, they still belong to the man. When we have a strong inner sanctuary, we become less reactive to the negativity of others. We can listen to their anger or their criticism without letting it penetrate our core. We understand that their behavior is a reflection of their own internal state, and we do not need to make it our own. This gives us the ability to respond with compassion instead of defensiveness, which often helps to de-escalate the situation and bring more peace to the world. This doesn't mean we become doormats or that we ignore injustice. On the contrary, when we act from a place of inner peace, our actions are much more effective. We are not driven by the heat of anger, which often clouds our judgment, but by a cool and clear resolve. We can stand up for what is right with a steady hand and a calm voice. Our sanctuary gives us the endurance to stay the course even when things are difficult. It is the well we drink from when we are thirsty and the fire that warms us when the world feels cold. It is a place of infinite resources because it is connected to the universal source of all life. When we realize this connection, we understand that we are never truly alone. The sanctuary within us is the same sanctuary that exists in every living being. One of the most beautiful aspects of this inner work is that it naturally leads to a greater sense of connection with others. As we become more familiar with our own inner landscape, we start to recognize the same patterns and struggles in the people around us. We see that everyone is just trying to find a little bit of peace and happiness in a confusing world. This realization softens our hearts and makes us more empathetic. We start to see our friends and family members not as obstacles or sources of stress, but as fellow travelers who are also trying to build their own inner homes. This shared humanity becomes the bridge that connects our individual sanctuaries into a larger community of peace. We begin to support each other in this process, offering a kind word or a listening ear when someone else's sanctuary feels a bit shaky. There was a community of people who lived in a valley where the sun only shone for a few hours a day. Because they had so little light, they learned how to mirror the sun's rays into each other's houses. When one person's home was in the light, they would use a polished stone to reflect that light into their neighbor's window. In this way, they all managed to have enough light to grow their gardens and see their families' faces. Our inner peace works in much the same way. When we find a bit of light in our own hearts, we can reflect it to those who are currently sitting in the dark. We don't have to do anything grand or spectacular. Sometimes, just being a calm presence in a room is enough to help others feel a bit more at ease. Our inner sanctuary is not a private bunker where we hide away from the world, but a lighthouse that provides guidance and comfort to anyone who sees it. Building this sanctuary is the work of a lifetime, but it is also the work of this very moment. There is no need to wait for a better time or a more peaceful environment. Right now, in the middle of whatever is happening, we can take a breath and notice the stillness that is always present. We can feel the weight of our body on the chair or the floor and realize that we are supported. We can look at the world with eyes of appreciation rather than eyes of lack. Each of these small acts is a way of coming home to ourselves. As we continue to practice, the path becomes more familiar and the journey becomes easier. We find that we are no longer searching for peace, but that we are becoming peace itself. In the days of old, there was a traveler who was caught in a heavy downpour. He found an old, abandoned hut and hurried inside to stay dry. The roof was leaking in several places, and the wind whistled through the cracks in the walls, but the traveler was grateful for the shelter. He sat in a corner where it was dry and watched the rain fall outside. He realized that even though the hut was not perfect, it was enough. Our minds are often like that old hut. They have leaks and cracks, and they aren't always as sturdy as we would like them to be. But if we can find the dry spot in the corner, the place of awareness that remains untouched by the rain of our thoughts, then we have found everything we need. We don't need a perfect mind to have a peaceful heart. We just need to know where to sit. As we deepen our relationship with this inner space, we start to experience a sense of freedom that is not dependent on what we have or what we do. It is the freedom of being. We realize that our worth is not a result of our achievements, but an inherent quality of our existence. This is a very joyful realization. It takes the pressure off us to always be doing more and being more. We can relax into the simplicity of the present moment and find that it is enough. This simplicity is the ultimate sophistication of the inner sanctuary. It is a place where we can shed our complexities and return to the direct experience of life. It is like coming home after a long and exhausting journey and finally taking off our heavy boots. There was a story about a king who wanted to find the most beautiful painting of peace. He offered a great prize to any artist who could capture the essence of tranquility. Many artists submitted paintings of calm lakes, soft sunsets, and sleeping children. But the king chose a painting that showed a violent waterfall crashing down a rocky cliff, with dark clouds and lightning in the background. In the middle of all this chaos, there was a tiny bush growing out of a crack in the rock, and on that bush, a small bird had built a nest. The bird was sitting on its eggs, eyes closed, appearing completely at peace despite the roar of the water and the storm. The king said that true peace is not the absence of noise or trouble, but the ability to be calm in the middle of it. This is exactly what we are building when we cultivate our inner sanctuary. We are building the nest on the cliff, the place where we can remain steady even when the world is roaring around us. This inner stability allows us to meet the challenges of life with a sense of curiosity rather than fear. When something unexpected happens, we can ask ourselves how this fits into our inner landscape. We can observe our reactions with interest and see what they have to teach us. Instead of being victims of our circumstances, we become the architects of our own experience. We see that every difficulty is an opportunity to strengthen the walls of our sanctuary and to deepen our understanding of ourselves. This shift in perspective is life-changing. It turns our obstacles into stepping stones and our problems into teachers. We begin to see that life is not happening to us, but for us, as a way to help us grow into our fullest potential. In a village far away, there was a tradition where every person would plant a tree when they were born. They would care for this tree throughout their lives, and it became a reflection of their own inner growth. If a person was going through a hard time, they would spend time with their tree, nurturing it and finding comfort in its steady presence. As the tree grew taller and stronger, so did the person's sense of themselves. We can think of our inner sanctuary as that tree. It requires regular attention and care, especially in the beginning. We need to water it with mindfulness and protect it from the weeds of negativity. But once it takes root, it becomes a source of shade and protection that lasts a lifetime. It becomes a living part of us that grows and evolves as we do. One of the most important lessons we learn in the sanctuary is the power of letting go. We spend so much of our lives holding on to things that no longer serve us, whether it is old grudges, outdated beliefs, or attachments to certain outcomes. This holding on creates a lot of tension and prevents us from being fully present. In the space of our inner sanctuary, we practice the art of the open hand. We learn that we can experience things deeply without needing to possess them. We can enjoy a beautiful sunset without trying to capture it in a photo, or appreciate a friendship without needing it to stay the same forever. When we let go, we create space for new things to enter our lives. We become more fluid and adaptable, like water flowing around a stone. There was a master who once told his students that the secret to a happy life is to have a short memory for injuries and a long memory for kindness. In our inner sanctuary, we can cultivate this selective memory. We can choose to focus on the moments of grace and connection we have experienced, and let the memories of hurt and disappointment fade into the background. This is not about denying our pain, but about choosing not to dwell in it. By intentionally focusing on the positive, we change the atmosphere of our inner world. We make it a more inviting and pleasant place to be. We start to attract more positivity into our lives because we are vibrating at a higher frequency. Our inner sanctuary becomes a magnet for all that is good and beautiful. As we spend more time in our sanctuary, we also begin to develop a deeper sense of intuition. When we are quiet and still, we can hear the subtle whispers of our heart that are often drowned out by the noise of the world. This inner voice is our most reliable guide. It knows what we need and which direction we should take. By trusting this voice, we move through life with more confidence and grace. We stop second-guessing ourselves and start acting from a place of inner certainty. This doesn't mean we will never make mistakes, but even our mistakes become part of the learning process. We trust that we have the inner resources to handle whatever comes our way. In a land of perpetual winter, there was a legend of a hidden valley where it was always spring. Many people searched for it, but very few ever found it. One day, an old traveler returned from his journey and told the villagers that the valley was not a place on a map, but a way of seeing the world. He said that even in the middle of the deepest snow, if you look closely enough, you can find the seeds of spring waiting beneath the surface. He taught them how to find the warmth within themselves so that they could carry the spring with them wherever they went. Our inner sanctuary is that hidden valley. It is the place where it is always spring, no matter how cold it is outside. By cultivating this inner warmth, we become a source of comfort and hope for ourselves and for everyone we meet. The journey of building an inner sanctuary is not about reaching a final goal, but about the quality of each step we take along the way. It is a process of returning again and again to the simple truth of our own being. Every time we choose kindness over judgment, or presence over distraction, we are making our sanctuary a little bit stronger. We are creating a legacy of peace that will continue to nourish us and those around us for years to come. This is the most important work we can do, for ourselves and for the world. In the quietness of our own hearts, we find the strength to transform our lives and to contribute to the healing of the entire human family. It all starts with a single breath and a gentle decision to come home. There was once a quiet village nestled at the foot of a great mountain range where the elders would often say that the mountains were the keepers of time and the clouds were the messengers of the soul. In this village, people lived simple lives, closely tied to the cycles of nature. They understood that just as the earth needs seasons of rest, the human spirit needs seasons of inwardness. They had a practice where, at the end of every day, they would sit in silence for a few minutes, looking at the peaks of the mountains. They weren't praying to the mountains or asking for anything. They were simply letting the vastness and the stability of the peaks remind them of the same qualities within themselves. They called this practice the mountain heart. When we build our inner sanctuary, we are essentially cultivating this mountain heart. We are finding that part of us that is ancient, unmoving, and deeply grounded, even as the clouds of our daily worries drift by. One day, a traveler came to the village and noticed how peaceful everyone seemed, even when things were difficult, like when the crops were thin or the winter was particularly harsh. He asked one of the elders how they managed to keep their spirits so high. The elder smiled and took him to the edge of the village, pointing to the reflection of the mountain in a still pond. He said that the secret was not in the mountain itself, but in the stillness of the water that allowed the mountain to be seen. If the water is disturbed, the mountain disappears. But if the water is calm, the mountain is always there. Our task in life is not to create the mountain. Our inner strength is already there, but to quiet the water of our mind so we can finally see it. This is the very essence of why we seek an inner sanctuary. We are not looking for something new, we are looking for a way to see what has always been present. To quiet the water, we have to understand what causes the ripples. Most of the time, our minds are disturbed by the winds of desire and aversion. We want things to be a certain way, and we are upset when they aren't. We chase after pleasant experiences and run away from unpleasant ones. This constant chasing and running creates a lot of turbulence. In the sanctuary of our heart, we practice the art of non-striving. We allow things to be exactly as they are without trying to change them. This doesn't mean we become passive or that we don't work to improve our lives. It means that our internal peace is no longer dependent on the outcome of our efforts. We can work hard and dream big while still remaining anchored in a deep sense of contentment. This kind of contentment is like a warm light that glows from within. It doesn't need to be fueled by external praise or material success. It is self-sustaining because it is rooted in the simple joy of existence. When we are content, we no longer feel the need to compete with others or to prove our worth. We see that everyone has their own mountain to discover and their own pond to still. This realization naturally leads to a sense of kindness and cooperation. Instead of seeing others as threats to our happiness, we see them as companions on the journey. We start to wonder how we can help them quiet their own water so they too can see their mountain. In one of the stories of old, there was a gardener who was famous for growing the most beautiful flowers in the kingdom. People would travel from far and wide to see his garden, but they were always surprised when they arrived. The garden wasn't filled with exotic or rare plants. It was filled with common wildflowers that could be found anywhere. When asked for his secret, the gardener said that he didn't focus on the flowers at all. He focused entirely on the soil. He made sure the earth was rich, moist, and free of rocks. He knew that if the soil was healthy, the flowers would naturally bloom in their own time and in their own way. Our inner sanctuary is like that soil. If we take care of our inner state, making it rich with awareness and moist with compassion, the beautiful qualities of our character will naturally flourish. We don't have to force ourselves to be more patient or more loving. These things are the natural result of a well-tended inner world. Tending the soil of our soul involves a regular practice of weeding. The weeds are the negative habits of mind that we have allowed to take root over the years, things like resentment, self-doubt, and the tendency to complain. These weeds can quickly take over if we aren't careful, choking out the light and stealing the nutrients from our inner garden. Weeding isn't about being harsh with ourselves. It's about noticing these habits as they arise and gently choosing not to feed them. Instead of getting angry at ourselves for having a negative thought, we can simply say, "Oh, there is that weed again," and then refocus our attention on something more nourishing. Over time, the weeds become weaker and the flowers become stronger. As we cultivate this inner space, we begin to notice a shift in how we experience time. In the outside world, time is often seen as a scarce resource that we are constantly running out of. We are always in a hurry, rushing from one thing to the next, feeling like we are never quite catching up. But in the sanctuary of the heart, time feels different. It feels vast and abundant. When we are fully present in the moment, a few minutes can feel like an eternity of peace. We start to value quality over quantity. We would rather spend 10 minutes in deep, meaningful connection with ourselves or another person than hours in mindless distraction. This slow and intentional way of living is one of the greatest gifts of the inner sanctuary. It allows us to actually experience our lives rather than just skimming over the surface. There was a master who was asked how he managed to stay so youthful even as he grew old in years. He replied that he never let the dust of the world settle on his spirit. Every day, he would take time to wash his mind clean of the day's events, returning to the freshness of the present moment. He said that most people carry their entire past with them, which makes them feel heavy and tired. But if we can learn to put down the past at the end of every day, we can wake up each morning with the curiosity and energy of a child. Our inner sanctuary is the place where we go to wash our spirits. It is the clear spring where we can rinse away the fatigue and the frustrations of the day. This practice of daily renewal is essential for maintaining our mental and emotional health. We live in a world that is constantly demanding our attention and trying to fill our minds with information and opinions. If we don't take the time to clear out the clutter, we will eventually feel overwhelmed and burnt out. The sanctuary provides us with the necessary boundaries to protect our inner peace. It is the place where we say no to the noise of the world so we can say yes to the quiet wisdom of our own soul. By protecting this space, we ensure that we always have a reservoir of strength to draw from. In the ancient times, there was a group of weavers who were known for making the most beautiful and durable fabric in the world. Their secret was that they would only weave when they were in a state of calm and focused attention. They believed that the energy of the weaver was woven into the fabric itself. If they were stressed or angry, the fabric would be weak and brittle. But if they were at peace, the fabric would be strong and beautiful. Our lives are like that fabric. Everything we do, every word we speak, every action we take is a thread that we are weaving into the story of our existence. If we act from a place of inner peace, our lives will naturally become more resilient and harmonious. By building an inner sanctuary, we are ensuring that the source of our weaving is always pure and steady. One of the most profound realizations that comes from spending time in our inner sanctuary is that we are not separate from the world around us. Although the sanctuary feels like a private space, it is actually the place where we discover our deep connection to all of life. When we go deep enough into our own hearts, we find the same pulse that beats in the trees, the animals, and the stars. We see that the boundaries we have created between ourselves and others are mostly illusions of the mind. This understanding brings about a sense of universal responsibility. We start to care for the world not because we feel we have to, but because we realize that the world is a part of us. Our inner peace and the peace of the world are two sides of the same coin. There was a story of a bird that lived in a forest that caught on fire. While all the other animals were running away in fear, the bird flew to a nearby stream, dipped its wings in the water, and then flew back over the forest to drop a few drops of water on the flames. The other animals mocked the bird, saying that its efforts were useless. But the bird replied that it was simply doing what it could. In the same way, we might feel like our small efforts to find inner peace are insignificant in a world filled with so much conflict and suffering. But each drop of peace we cultivate in our own hearts is a contribution to the cooling of the world's fires. When we are at peace, we stop adding to the anger and the tension. We become a source of calm that can help to soothe the hearts of those around us. As we continue on this journey, we find that the sanctuary within us becomes more and more accessible. At first, it might feel like we have to work hard to find it, like searching for a hidden path in a dense forest. But as we travel the path more often, it becomes clear and well-worn. Eventually, we don't even have to think about it. The sanctuary becomes our natural state of being. We carry the silence of the forest and the stability of the mountain with us wherever we go. Even in the middle of a noisy city or a stressful situation, we can simply drop into that space and find our center. This is the ultimate freedom to be at home in ourselves, no matter where we are. There is a beautiful image of a lotus flower that grows in a muddy pond. The roots are deep in the mud, but the flower itself rises above the water, clean and vibrant. This is a perfect metaphor for the inner sanctuary. We don't have to wait for the world to be clean and perfect before we can experience peace. We can have our roots in the difficulties of life and still blossom with grace and clarity. The mud is not an obstacle to the lotus, it is actually the source of its nourishment. In the same way, our challenges are not obstacles to our peace, they are the very things that help us to grow and deepen our understanding. In the village by the mountain, the elders would often say that the most important thing is to keep the heart open, even when it is difficult. They knew that when we close our hearts to protect ourselves from pain, we also close ourselves off from joy and connection. The inner sanctuary is not a place where we lock the doors and hide. It is a place where we learn how to stay open in a way that is safe and sustainable. It is like a house with many windows that allow the light and the air to flow through. We can see the world clearly, and we can be seen by the world, without losing our sense of self. This openness is a form of courage. It takes bravery to be vulnerable and to show our true selves to the world. But when we have a strong inner sanctuary, we have the confidence to take that risk. We know that even if we are misunderstood or rejected, our internal home is still there, waiting for us. We are no longer afraid of our own emotions or the reactions of others. We can meet everything with a sense of equanimity, knowing that it is all part of the great dance of life. The building of our sanctuary is a creative act. We are the artists of our own inner world. We get to decide what colors to use, what music to play, and what stories to tell ourselves. We can choose to fill our space with beauty, meaning, and love. As we do this, we find that our lives become more vibrant and fulfilling. We are no longer just surviving, we are truly living. We are participating in the unfolding of a beautiful and mysterious universe, and we are doing it from a place of deep and lasting peace. There was a traveler who had been walking for many days in a dry and dusty land. He was tired and thirsty, and he began to lose hope of ever finding water. But then he remembered the words of an old teacher who had told him that in every desert, there is a hidden spring, if you only know how to look. He sat down and began to listen. He didn't listen for the sound of water with his ears, but with his whole body. He felt for the subtle coolness in the air and the slight change in the texture of the soil. Eventually, he found a small patch of green grass, and when he dug into the earth, a clear and cool spring bubbled up. Our inner sanctuary is that hidden spring. It is always there, even when our lives feel dry and empty. We just have to slow down and listen with our whole being to find it. As we conclude this part of our journey together, let's take a moment to simply be in the space we have created. There is no need for words or thoughts. Just notice the feeling of being alive, right here and now. Feel the breath moving in and out of your body, like the gentle tide of the ocean. Notice the stillness that exists beneath the surface of your awareness. This is your sanctuary. It is always open, always welcoming, and always full of peace. You can return here whenever you need to, throughout your day and throughout your life. It is your most precious possession, and it is something that no one can ever take away from you. The path forward is simple. It is just about continuing to show up for yourself with kindness and curiosity. Each day is a new opportunity to tend your inner garden and to strengthen the walls of your sanctuary. There is no hurry and no pressure. You are exactly where you need to be, and you have everything you need to find the peace you seek. Trust in the process, and trust in the vastness of your own heart. The world may be full of noise and change, but within you, there is a silence that is timeless and a peace that is absolute. Imagine a large, ancient tree in the middle of a vast field. This tree has seen hundreds of years of history. It has survived droughts, floods, and the fiercest storms. Its roots go deep into the earth, winding around stones and reaching down into the underground water. Its branches reach high into the sky, providing a home for countless birds and insects. Even when the wind blows so hard that the smaller trees are snapped in half, this ancient tree remains standing. It might lose a few leaves or a small branch, but its core is solid and unshakable. When we build our inner sanctuary, we are becoming like that tree. We are developing a depth and a strength that allows us to withstand the fluctuations of life with grace and resilience. In the old stories, there was a king who was constantly worried about the future of his kingdom. He spent his days and nights strategizing and planning, trying to control every possible outcome. He became so stressed that he couldn't sleep or eat. One day, he met a simple woodcutter who lived in a small hut at the edge of the forest. The woodcutter had very little in the way of material wealth, but he always had a smile on his face and a sparkle in his eye. The king asked him for his secret. The woodcutter said that he simply focused on the piece of wood in front of him. When he was cutting wood, he was only cutting wood. He didn't worry about the next day or the next year. He trusted that if he did his best in the present moment, the future would take care of itself. The king realized that his worry was like a heavy cloak that was preventing him from enjoying his life. He began to practice the woodcutter's simple focus, and slowly, his anxiety began to fade. This simple focus is a key part of our inner sanctuary. It is the ability to be fully present with whatever we are doing, no matter how mundane it might seem. When we are washing the dishes, we are just washing the dishes. When we are walking to the store, we are just walking. By giving our full attention to the present moment, we stop the leaks of energy that happen when our minds are constantly jumping to the past or the future. We find that there is a quiet satisfaction in even the simplest tasks. This presence is the foundation of our inner peace. It is the anchor that keeps us from being swept away by the currents of our own thoughts. To maintain this presence, we must learn to be gentle with ourselves when our minds inevitably wander. It is the nature of the mind to be busy, like a playful monkey swinging from branch to branch. Instead of being frustrated when we get distracted, we can just notice it with a smile and gently bring our attention back to the breath or the task at hand. This act of returning is the most important part of the practice. Each time we return, we are strengthening the muscle of mindfulness. We are showing ourselves that we have the power to choose where our attention goes. This choice is the beginning of our inner freedom. In the mountains of the East, there was a legendary spring that was said to have the power to heal any wound. Many people went in search of it, but they all came back disappointed, saying they couldn't find it. An old hermit who lived near the peak of the mountain laughed when he heard their stories. He said that the spring was not hidden behind a rock or in a cave. It was hidden in the sound of the wind in the pines and the feeling of the sun on the skin. He said that people couldn't find it because they were looking for something extraordinary, when the real magic was in the ordinary things they were ignoring. Our inner sanctuary is much like that healing spring. It isn't something we have to create through some complex ritual or difficult effort. It is something we discover by simply paying attention to the beauty and the grace that are already present in our lives. Think about the last time you felt a moment of true peace. Maybe it was the smell of the air after a rainstorm, the sound of a loved one's laughter, or the feeling of satisfaction after finishing a good book. In those moments, your inner sanctuary was fully open. You weren't wanting anything else or wishing things were different. You were just perfectly at peace with what was. Our goal is to make these moments less like rare accidents and more like the regular rhythm of our lives. We do this by cultivating an attitude of gratitude and appreciation. When we focus on what is going well, we naturally open the doors to our inner sanctuary. We invite more of that peaceful energy into our daily experience. There was a student who was very eager to learn about the nature of the soul. He asked his teacher many complicated questions about life after death and the structure of the universe. The teacher listened patiently and then asked the student to go and bring him a glass of water. When the student returned, the teacher told him to look into the water and tell him what he saw. The student said he saw the reflection of his own face. The teacher then told him to stir the water with a spoon and tell him what he saw then. The student said the water was cloudy and he couldn't see anything clearly. The teacher said that the student's questions were like the spoon, stirring up the water of his mind. If he wanted to know the truth about the soul, he didn't need more information, he needed more stillness. When the mind is still, the truth reflects itself naturally, just like the face in the calm water. Stillness is not the same as silence. We can be in a very loud environment and still have a still mind. Stillness is a quality of internal composure. It is the ability to remain centered even when there is a lot of activity around us. In our sanctuary, we practice this inner composure. We learn how to be the eye of the storm, the calm center around which everything else rotates. This gives us a tremendous amount of power and clarity. We can see the situations we are in without being overwhelmed by them. We can make decisions based on wisdom rather than on emotional reactivity. This inner stillness is a sanctuary that no amount of external noise can penetrate. Building this sanctuary also involves learning how to forgive. We often carry old hurts and resentments around with us like heavy bags of stones. We think that by holding on to our anger, we are somehow punishing the person who hurt us. But the truth is that we are only punishing ourselves. We are the ones who have to carry the weight. In the space of our inner sanctuary, we can practice the act of laying those stones down. Forgiveness doesn't mean that we condone what happened or that we have to become best friends with the person who hurt us. It simply means that we are choosing to no longer let that past event dictate our present peace. We are reclaiming the energy that was being tied up in resentment and using it to build our own happiness. There was a great master who was once asked what he had gained from a lifetime of practice. He replied that he hadn't gained anything, but he had lost a great deal. He had lost his anger, his anxiety, his fear of the future, and his attachment to the past. This is the paradoxical nature of building an inner sanctuary. It's not about adding something to ourselves, it's about removing the obstacles that prevent us from experiencing our true nature. We are like a statue that is hidden inside a block of marble. The work of the sculptor is not to create the statue, but to chip away the extra stone until the statue is revealed. Our practice is to chip away the habits and beliefs that are not who we truly are, until the peaceful and wise core of our being is all that remains. As we go about our day, we can use simple reminders to help us return to our sanctuary. It could be a small stone in our pocket, a certain ring on our finger, or even just the sound of a bell. Whenever we notice the reminder, we take a single, conscious breath and check in with our internal state. This only takes a few seconds, but it has a cumulative effect. It keeps the path to our sanctuary clear and easy to find. It reminds us that we have a choice in every moment how we want to show up in the world. We can choose to be reactive and stressed, or we can choose to be calm and present. These small choices are the building blocks of a peaceful life. In a village in the far north, there was a tradition of building fires in the middle of the winter nights. The villagers would gather around the fire, sharing stories and songs. The fire didn't just provide physical warmth, it provided a sense of community and hope during the long, dark months. They knew that as long as the fire was burning, they would be okay. Our inner sanctuary is like that fire. It is a source of warmth and light that we can always count on, no matter how dark or cold the world might feel. By tending to our inner fire, we are making sure that we always have a place of refuge and a reason to keep moving forward. One of the most beautiful things about our inner sanctuary is that it is infinitely spacious. No matter how much we learn or how much we grow, there is always more room. It is a place of endless discovery and wonder. As we explore the depths of our own being, we find that we are much more vast and mysterious than we ever imagined. We find that we have capacities for love, creativity, and wisdom that were just waiting for the right environment to blossom. The sanctuary provides that environment. It is the sacred space where our soul can truly stretch its wings and fly. Think of your mind as a house. Most of the time, we are busy in the kitchen or the living room, dealing with the chores and the conversations of daily life. But every house should have a quiet room, a place where there are no distractions and where we can just go to sit and be still. Our inner sanctuary is that quiet room. We can go there whenever we need a break from the noise and the demands of the world. We don't have to stay there all the time, but knowing that the room is there gives us a sense of comfort and security. It makes the rest of the house feel more manageable because we know we have a place to retreat to when things get to be too much. There was a story of a young monk who was struggling with his practice. He went to his teacher and said that he felt like he was making no progress at all. The teacher took him to the side of a large mountain and told him to look at the trees. He asked the monk if the trees were growing. The monk said yes, but he couldn't see them actually moving. The teacher said that the growth of the soul is much like the growth of a tree. It happens so slowly that we can't see it from moment to moment. But if we keep providing the right conditions, plenty of water, sunlight, and good soil, the tree will eventually reach its full height. We must have the same patience with ourselves. Building an inner sanctuary is not a quick fix, it is a long-term commitment to our own well-being. Every small effort we make is contributing to our growth, even if we can't see the results right away. As we continue to build our inner sanctuary, we find that our relationships with others also begin to change. We become less dependent on others for our happiness, which actually makes our connections with them more healthy and authentic. We are no longer looking for someone else to fill a void in our own lives because we have found a sense of wholeness within ourselves. This allows us to love others more freely and deeply, without the pressure of needing them to be a certain way. Our sanctuary becomes a place from which we can offer support and kindness to those around us, without feeling depleted or resentful. We become a stable presence in the lives of our friends and family, a person they can turn to when they are feeling lost or overwhelmed. There was a community of people who lived in a valley that was prone to flooding. Every few years, the river would rise and wash away their homes and their crops. Instead of moving away, the villagers decided to build a large, stone tower in the center of the village. The tower was built on the highest ground and had walls that were several feet thick. Whenever the floods came, the villagers would gather in the tower, safe and dry, until the water receded. They would bring their most precious possessions and enough food to last for several days. Our inner sanctuary is like that stone tower. It is the place where we go when the floods of life, the difficult emotions, the unexpected losses, and the stresses of the world start to rise. It is the safe haven that keeps our most precious inner qualities from being washed away. To build our tower, we have to be willing to put in the work. We have to be diligent in our practice and committed to our own growth. This doesn't mean that we have to be perfect or that we will never feel stressed or sad. It just means that we have a reliable place to go when those feelings arise. We have a set of tools and a way of being that can help us navigate the challenges of life with more ease. The more we use these tools, the stronger and more resilient we become. We find that we are no longer afraid of the floods because we know we have a place that can withstand them. One of the greatest joys of having an inner sanctuary is the sense of quiet confidence it provides. It's not an arrogant or loud kind of confidence, but a deep, steady assurance that we are okay, no matter what happens. We know that we have the inner resources to handle whatever life throws at us. This confidence allows us to live more boldly and to take more risks. We are no longer held back by the fear of failure or the fear of being judged by others. We are guided by our own inner wisdom and our own sense of purpose. We are the masters of our own ship, navigating the vast ocean of life with a steady hand and a clear vision. Think of a musician who has spent many years practicing their instrument. When they are on stage, they aren't thinking about the notes or the fingerings. They are just playing from their heart, fully immersed in the music. Their years of practice have built an inner sanctuary of skill and understanding that allows them to perform with ease and grace. Our lives are our instrument, and our practice of building an inner sanctuary is how we learn to play them well. When we are centered and present, we can move through our days with a sense of flow and harmony. We are no longer struggling with life, we are dancing with it. There was a story about a master who was known for his incredible ability to find beauty in everything. One day, a student brought him a piece of broken pottery and asked him what beauty he could possibly see in something that was shattered and useless. The master took the pieces and carefully joined them back together using a special lacquer mixed with gold. He said that the cracks were not something to be hidden, but something to be celebrated. They were part of the story of the pottery, and the gold made the object even more beautiful and valuable than it was before it was broken. Our inner sanctuary is the place where we can do this kind of healing work on ourselves. We can take our broken pieces, our mistakes, our failures, and our hurts and join them back together with the gold of our own compassion and wisdom. We find that our scars are not signs of weakness, but symbols of our strength and our resilience. As we reach the end of this reflection, let's take another breath and settle into the quiet space of our own hearts. Notice how it feels to simply be here, without any agenda or any expectations. This is the place of true rest. It is the home that you carry with you always. It is the sanctuary of your soul. As you go back into your daily life, remember that this space is always available to you. You don't have to go anywhere to find it, you just have to turn your attention inward and listen to the silence that is already there. You are the architect of your own peace, and you have already begun the beautiful work of building a sanctuary that will last a lifetime. The architecture of this internal home is further refined when we begin to view our daily interactions as the raw material for our spiritual growth. Every encounter with a stranger or a friend is a moment where we can choose to practice the stability we have found in our quietest moments. We often think that our sanctuary is only for when we are alone, but its true value is revealed when we are in the thick of life's complexity. Imagine being a pillar in a busy marketplace. The people around you may be rushing and shouting, but you remain upright and still, providing a sense of direction just by your presence. This stability is not something we force through sheer willpower, but something that arises naturally when we stop identifying with the chaos. We realize that we are the space in which the chaos happens, and space itself is never cluttered. Even when a room is filled with furniture and people, the space remains empty and free. This is the quality of mind we are cultivating, a vast, open awareness that can hold everything without being overwhelmed by anything. In the old chronicles of the forest dwellers, there is a story of a traveler who found himself lost in a thick mist. He could not see more than a few feet in front of him and began to feel a rising sense of panic. He started to run, hoping to find a clearing, but he only ended up tripping over roots and getting scratched by thorns. Finally, he sat down and decided to wait. As he sat there, he began to notice the sounds he had ignored before, the drip of moisture from the leaves, the distant call of a bird, and the rhythm of his own heartbeat. In the stillness, the mist didn't seem like an enemy anymore, but like a soft blanket wrapping the world in mystery. When the sun finally rose and burned away the fog, the traveler realized he was exactly where he needed to be, right next to a path that led home. Our anxiety is often like that mist. When we try to fight it or run from it, we only hurt ourselves. But when we sit still and acknowledge it within our sanctuary, we find that the path to clarity is revealed in its own time. We do not need to push the fog away, we only need to wait for our own inner sun to rise. This patience is a form of deep trust in the natural unfolding of our lives. We are so used to trying to manufacture our happiness, as if it were a product we could assemble on a factory line. But true peace is more like a wild flower, it grows when the conditions are right, not when we demand it to. By maintaining our inner sanctuary, we are simply keeping the ground fertile. We are removing the heavy rocks of judgment and the weeds of constant comparison. When we stop comparing our lives to the lives of others, we feel an immediate lightness in our chest. We see that the flower of our neighbor's garden does not take away from the beauty of our own. Each of us has a unique rhythm and a unique season for blooming. In the sanctuary of the heart, there is no competition, only a shared celebration of growth. There was a group of monks who lived in a temple famous for its beautiful bells. People would come from all over to hear the bells ring at dawn, saying the sound was so pure it could heal a broken spirit. One day, a curious visitor asked the head monk how they cast such perfect bells. The monk explained that it wasn't about the metal or the fire, but about the silence that followed each strike. He said that a bell is only as good as the silence it inhabits. If the atmosphere is filled with noise, the bell's tone is lost. But if the air is clear and quiet, the sound can travel for miles. Our lives are like those bells. Every action we take and every word we speak is a strike against the metal of our character. If our inner sanctuary is quiet and clear, our lives will ring with a beautiful and healing tone. If we are cluttered and distracted, our impact on the world will be dull and fragmented. We must protect our internal silence so that our external actions can have true resonance. This protection often requires us to be more discerning about the conversations we engage in and the thoughts we entertain. We often let our minds become like a public park where anyone can dump their trash. We listen to gossip, we dwell on the mistakes of others, and we fill our heads with the latest tragedies from across the globe. While it is important to be informed and compassionate, we must also recognize when we are simply consuming mental poison. In our sanctuary, we have the right to be selective. We can choose to dwell on thoughts that are helpful, kind, and true. This is not about being ignorant, but about being healthy. Just as we wouldn't eat spoiled food, we shouldn't feed our minds on spoiled thoughts. When we feed ourselves on inspiration and wisdom, we find that we have much more energy to actually help the world. There is a story of a great king who was so impressed by a certain sage's wisdom that he offered him half of his kingdom. The sage laughed and said that he already owned the entire world. The king was confused and asked how that could be, since the sage owned nothing but a simple robe and a wooden bowl. The sage took the king to a window and pointed at the moon, the trees, and the flowing river. He said that because he had no desire to possess these things, he was free to enjoy them fully. He said that the king's ownership was actually a form of burden, because he had to protect and defend what he claimed to own. The sage, on the other hand, could enjoy the beauty of the mountain without having to worry about who owned the land. Our inner sanctuary gives us this same kind of freedom. When we stop trying to possess our experiences and instead just experience them, the whole world becomes our garden. We find joy in things that are free and available to everyone: the wind, the stars, the feeling of a cool breeze. As we move deeper into this practice, we begin to see that even our physical bodies are part of the sanctuary. We often treat our bodies like machines that are supposed to perform for us, and we get frustrated when they feel tired or sick. But in the space of mindfulness, we see the body as a sacred vessel. We listen to its signals with the same respect we would give to a teacher. We notice the tension in our shoulders as a sign that we are carrying too much, or the heaviness in our eyes as a call for rest. By treating our physical selves with kindness, we make it easier for our spirits to remain centered. A body that is well cared for is a much more comfortable home for a peaceful mind. Imagine you are a weaver working on a vast tapestry that represents your life. Every moment is a thread. Some threads are dark and heavy, representing times of sorrow or struggle. Others are bright and shimmering, representing moments of joy and success. From where you are sitting, very close to the loom, it might be hard to see the pattern. You might think the dark threads are a mistake or that they spoil the beauty of the work. But in the sanctuary of your soul, you can step back and see the whole tapestry from a distance. You see that the dark threads are necessary to give depth and contrast to the bright ones. Without the shadows, the light wouldn't have any meaning. You see that the entire work is a masterpiece of complexity and balance. This perspective allows you to keep weaving with a steady hand, even when the thread you are currently holding is difficult or painful. There was a student who was very discouraged because he felt his mind was too full of wandering thoughts. He told his teacher that he felt like a failure because he couldn't stay focused for more than a few seconds. The teacher took him outside to a large pond and told him to throw a handful of rice into the water. As the rice hit the surface, hundreds of small fish came rushing to the top, darting here and there to catch the grains. The teacher said that the student's thoughts were like those fish. If you try to catch each one, you will only get exhausted. But if you just keep feeding them with the rice of your awareness, eventually they will be satisfied and swim back down to the depths. The goal is not to get rid of the fish, but to stop being bothered by their movement. We can let our thoughts swim around in the vast ocean of our consciousness without needing to chase them. This ability to let things be is a great source of power. We spend so much of our lives trying to control things that are beyond our reach. We try to control what people think of us, how the economy behaves, and even the weather. This desire for control is the primary source of our stress. When we enter our inner sanctuary, we consciously lay down the burden of control. We accept that we are small parts of a much larger universe that is moving according to its own laws. This acceptance is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of profound wisdom. It is like a sailor who knows they cannot control the wind, but they can certainly adjust their sails. When we stop fighting the wind, we can finally use its power to take us where we need to go. There is a legendary story of a woman who was known for her incredible serenity. Even when her house burned down and she lost everything she owned, she remained calm and kind. When people asked her how she could be so peaceful after such a tragedy, she said that her true home was never made of wood and stone. She said that she had spent years building a house inside her heart that fire could not touch and thieves could not steal. She said that as long as she had her breath and her awareness, she was the wealthiest person in the world. This is the ultimate goal of building an inner sanctuary, to have a home that is truly indestructible. When we find this place, we no longer fear loss, because we know that the most important part of us is safe. As we go about our daily chores, we can practice making every action a form of meditation. When we are sweeping the floor, we are not just moving dirt, we are clearing the path of our own mind. Each stroke of the broom can be a conscious movement, a way of being fully present with the textures and the sounds of the moment. We can feel the handle in our hands and the movement of our muscles. This turns a boring chore into an opportunity for peace. We are no longer rushing through the present to get to some future goal. We are finding the goal right here, in the simple act of sweeping. This is how we bring the sanctuary into the world. We don't have to wait for a special time to be spiritual. Every moment is an invitation to be awake. In the old villages, people would often leave a small lamp burning in their window at night to help travelers find their way. Our inner peace acts like that lamp. When we are calm and centered, we provide a sense of direction for others who might be lost in their own storms. We don't have to say anything or do anything special. Just by being ourselves, we offer a sense of possibility. We show others that it is possible to be peaceful even in a difficult world. This is the most profound form of service we can offer. It is a quiet, steady radiation of kindness that touches everyone we meet. Our sanctuary becomes a shared resource, a place where others can find a bit of warmth and light just by being near us. Think of the earth itself as a great sanctuary. It provides everything we need to live, the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat. It does this without asking for anything in return. It holds us with a gravity that is constant and sure. When we feel overwhelmed, we can literally go and sit on the ground, letting the earth take the weight of our worries. We can feel the stability of the soil beneath us and remember that we are part of something much bigger and older than our current problems. This connection to the natural world is a vital part of our inner refuge. It reminds us of the cycles of growth and rest, and the inherent wisdom that exists in all living things. There was once a master who was asked what the most important word in the language was. He thought for a moment and then said the word was enough. He explained that most of our suffering comes from the feeling that we are not enough, that we don't have enough, or that we haven't done enough. This sense of lack drives us to be constantly busy and constantly dissatisfied. But in the sanctuary of the heart, we can practice the feeling of being enough. We can look at ourselves and say, in this moment, exactly as I am enough. I don't need to be smarter, richer, or more successful to be worthy of peace. This simple shift in perspective can transform our lives. It allows us to relax into our own existence and to finally enjoy the fruits of our labor. Building an inner sanctuary is also about creating a space for our creativity to emerge. When the mind is constantly cluttered with stress and noise, there is no room for new ideas or inspirations. But when we clear a space of stillness, we invite the creative spirit to visit us. We might find ourselves wanting to paint, to write, to garden, or to simply solve problems in a new and more effective way. This creativity is a sign of a healthy and vibrant soul. It is the way we express our unique perspective on the world. By nurturing our sanctuary, we are also nurturing our creative potential, allowing ourselves to bring something beautiful and original into the world. There is a story of a traveler who came across a group of workers who were building a large stone wall. He asked the first worker what he was doing, and the man replied with a sigh that he was just stacking heavy stones all day. He asked the second worker the same question, and the man said he was building a wall to earn money for his family. He asked the third worker, and the man looked up with a bright smile and said he was building a cathedral that would stand for 1,000 years. All three men were doing the same physical work, but their internal experience was completely different. Building an inner sanctuary is like building that cathedral. It might involve the repetitive work of mindfulness and the heavy lifting of dealing with our difficult emotions, but if we keep the vision of the cathedral in our minds, the work becomes a source of joy and meaning. We are not just managing our stress, we are building a monument to the human spirit. One of the most important aspects of our sanctuary is the quality of silence we find there. This silence is not empty, it is full of presence. It is like the silence of a deep forest or the silence of a snowy night. In this silence, we can finally hear the truth of our own being. We can hear the quiet longings of our heart and the gentle guidance of our intuition. We find that we don't need as many external answers as we thought we did. Most of the wisdom we need is already inside us, just waiting for the noise to die down so it can be heard. By spending time in our sanctuary, we become our own best teachers and our own most reliable guides. This internal guidance is especially helpful when we have to make difficult decisions. Instead of just weighing the pros and cons with our logical mind, we can take the question into our sanctuary and see how it feels in our body and our heart. We can ask, does this choice bring more peace or more conflict? Does it align with my deepest values? When we act from this place of inner alignment, we rarely regret our choices, even if the outcome isn't exactly what we expected. We have the satisfaction of knowing that we acted with integrity and awareness. This is the true meaning of living a mindful life. There was a master who used to say that the mind is a wonderful servant but a terrible master. If we let our thoughts run the show, we will always be at the mercy of our moods and our circumstances. But if we can learn to be the master of our own mind, we can find peace in any situation. Building an inner sanctuary is how we reclaim our throne. We stop being the victims of our mental chatter and start being the conscious directors of our own attention. We realize that we have the power to choose which thoughts to follow and which ones to let go. This is the ultimate form of self-mastery, and it is the key to lasting happiness. Think of your life as a long journey across a vast landscape. Sometimes the path is easy and the weather is beautiful, but other times the path is steep and the weather is harsh. Your inner sanctuary is the backpack you carry with you. Inside that backpack, you have everything you need: a map of your values, a compass of your intuition, and a warm blanket of self-compassion. No matter how the external conditions change, you have the resources to keep going. You can stop at any time to rest and recharge. You are never truly lost or alone because you carry your home with you. This sense of self-sufficiency is a great gift, allowing you to face the world with a sense of adventure and confidence. In the tradition of the ancient storytellers, it was said that every person has a secret song that their soul sings. Most people never hear their song because they are too busy listening to the noise of the world. But if you can find a quiet place and listen very carefully, you can start to hear the first few notes. As you build your inner sanctuary, the song becomes louder and clearer. Eventually, you can hear it all the time, providing a beautiful soundtrack to your life. This song is the expression of your true nature, the unique vibration that only you can bring to the universe. When you live in harmony with this song, your life becomes a work of art. Imagine a mountain stream that is filled with stones. The water doesn't fight the stones, it simply flows over and around them. It finds the path of least resistance, moving with a constant and graceful energy. If the stream were to stop and try to push the stones out of the way, it would lose its momentum and become a stagnant pool. Our lives are like that stream, and the challenges we face are like the stones. Our inner sanctuary gives us the fluidity of the water. We learn how to flow around our difficulties without losing our way. We understand that the stones are just part of the landscape, and that the water is always moving toward the great ocean of peace. There was once a gardener who was asked how he managed to stay so calm when a sudden frost killed all his young plants. He said that he was of course sad to lose the plants, but he knew that the life was not in the plants themselves, but in the seeds and the soil. He knew that as long as he had the seeds and the soil was healthy, he could always plant again. Our inner sanctuary is like that healthy soil. Even when we experience failures and losses in the world, we know that the source of our life and our happiness is still intact. We have the seeds of wisdom and the soil of awareness, and we can always begin again. This resilience is one of the most powerful fruits of our practice. As we continue to dwell in this space, we find that our sense of humor also begins to return. We stop taking ourselves and our problems so seriously. We see the humor in our own quirks and the absurdity of some of the situations we find ourselves in. This lightheartedness is a sign of a truly peaceful mind. It shows that we are no longer gripped by the fear of being imperfect. We can laugh at our mistakes and move on with a light heart. A person who can laugh at themselves is a person who is truly free. Our sanctuary becomes a place of joy and playfulness, where we can rediscover the wonder of being alive. One of the most profound effects of building an inner sanctuary is the way it changes our experience of solitude. Many people are afraid of being alone because they are afraid of what they will find in the silence. They fill their time with noise and distraction to avoid meeting themselves. But when you have a sanctuary, solitude becomes a precious opportunity. It is a time to reconnect with your deepest self and to nourish your spirit. You start to look forward to those moments of quiet, seeing them as a chance to come home. You are no longer lonely when you are alone, because you are in the company of your own wise and loving presence. There was a master who was asked what the difference was between a wise person and a fool. He said that a fool is always looking for peace in the next moment, while a wise person finds it in this one. This is the heart of our practice. We stop waiting for things to change before we allow ourselves to be happy. We find the peace that is already here, hidden under the surface of our busy minds. We realize that the sanctuary is not a place we are going to, but a place we are coming from. It is the ground on which we stand and the air that we breathe. Think of a large bell that has been struck. The sound starts loud and then slowly fades away into silence. But even after the sound is gone, the vibration remains for a long time. Our time in the sanctuary is like the striking of the bell. It creates a vibration of peace that continues to ripple through our lives long after we have finished our formal practice. It affects the way we speak to our children, the way we handle a difficult email, and even the way we drive our cars. The more we strike the bell, the more constant the vibration becomes. Eventually, our whole life becomes a long, beautiful resonance of peace. In a village at the edge of the sea, the fishermen would always look at the horizon before they went out in their boats. They weren't just looking for fish, they were looking for the state of the water. They knew that the surface of the sea could be very different from the depths. Even when the surface was rough and white with foam, the depths remained calm and still. Our inner sanctuary is those depths. No matter how rough the surface of our lives might be, we can always dive down into the stillness of our own being. We find that the calm is always there, waiting for us, untouched by the storms of the world. As we end this part of our exploration, let's take a moment to appreciate the journey we are on. It is a journey of returning to the most natural and beautiful part of ourselves. It is a journey of discovery and healing. Every step we take is a victory of awareness over distraction. Every breath we take is a confirmation of our own worthiness and peace. Trust in the journey, and trust in the sanctuary that is already beginning to take shape within you. It is a home that will never fail you, a refuge that is as vast as the sky and as steady as the earth. You are the architect, and the building has already begun. The foundation of this internal refuge grows even stronger when we recognize that our thoughts are not commands but merely suggestions from a busy mind. Most of us spend our days reacting to every mental spark as if it were an absolute truth, allowing a single worried idea to dictate our entire mood. In the stillness of the sanctuary, we learn to sit on the riverbank and watch these thoughts float by like leaves on the water. Some leaves are bright and colorful, while others are dark and decaying, but none of them can change the nature of the river itself. We begin to understand that we are the river, vast and flowing, rather than the temporary debris that passes through us. This shift in perspective is incredibly liberating because it means we no longer have to fix or fight every thought that arises. We can simply acknowledge its presence and let it continue its journey downstream. By refusing to engage in the struggle, we preserve the energy that would otherwise be wasted on internal conflict, allowing us to remain rested and clear for the things that truly matter. There is an old story about a woodcarver who was asked how he managed to create such lifelike figures of animals from blocks of rough wood. He explained that he did not actually create the animals, he simply removed the wood that was not the animal. He said that the deer or the bird was already inside the block, waiting to be revealed, and his only job was to be patient and precise with his tools. Our inner peace is exactly like that hidden figure. It is not something we need to build from scratch or acquire from a distance. It is already present within the core of our being, covered by layers of social conditioning, past hurts, and unnecessary worries. Our practice of mindfulness is the tool we use to gently chip away at these layers. Every time we choose to breathe instead of reacting in anger, we are removing a thin sliver of wood. Every time we offer ourselves a moment of kindness, we are revealing more of the sanctuary that has always been there. This process of revelation requires a deep sense of humility and a willingness to be a beginner every single day. We often get caught in the trap of wanting to be experts in our own lives, feeling that we should have all the answers by now. But the sanctuary is a place for the curious, not the certain. It is a space where we can admit that we are still learning, still growing, and still susceptible to the same human emotions as everyone else. This honesty creates a bridge of empathy between us and the world. When we stop pretending to be perfect, we give others permission to be imperfect too. We find that our relationships become much more authentic when they are based on shared vulnerability rather than performed strength. This is how the sanctuary expands. It starts as a private room but eventually becomes a welcoming space that can hold the struggles and triumphs of everyone we meet. In a kingdom long ago, there was a bell maker who was famous for creating bells that never cracked, even after decades of use. When the king asked for his secret, the man said that he added a small amount of gold to every batch of molten metal, not for the color, but for the flexibility it gave to the iron. He said that pure iron is strong but brittle, while iron mixed with gold can absorb the shock of the hammer without breaking. Our inner sanctuary is the gold and the iron of our lives. Without it, we might appear strong on the outside, but the first major hardship could cause us to shatter. With a well-tended inner world, we develop a spiritual flexibility that allows us to absorb the impacts of life without losing our integrity. We might vibrate with the pain of a loss or the stress of a challenge, but we do not break. We carry the resonance of the experience within us, turning it into a deeper and richer tone of wisdom. This flexibility is what allows us to stay balanced even when our external world is in a state of flux. We often think that we need a stable environment to feel peaceful, but the highest form of peace is found in the midst of change. Imagine a bird perched on a branch during a storm. The branch may sway and the wind may howl, but the bird is not afraid because it does not put its trust in the branch. It puts its trust in its own wings. If the branch breaks, the bird simply flies. Building an inner sanctuary is like strengthening our wings. It gives us the confidence to know that even if the external structures of our lives shift or collapse, we have the capacity to sustain ourselves. We are no longer victims of our circumstances, but active participants in our own stability. We can find many opportunities to practice this stability in the small, seemingly insignificant moments of our day. When we are waiting in traffic or standing in a long line, we can feel the frustration rising in our chest like heat. Instead of letting that heat turn into a fire of resentment, we can use it as a signal to return to our sanctuary. We can feel the soles of our feet on the ground and notice the rhythm of our breath. We can observe the people around us and realize that they are likely feeling the same impatience. In that moment of shared humanity, the frustration begins to dissolve. We realize that the delay is not an obstacle to our life, but a part of our life. By accepting the moment exactly as it is, we find a pocket of peace where there was once only irritation. This is the art of turning the lead of daily stress into the gold of mindfulness. There was a wise woman who lived in a small cottage by the sea, and people would often visit her to ask how she stayed so happy despite having very few possessions. She would take them to the beach and show them the tide coming in and going out. She said that the ocean never tries to hold on to the waves, and the shore never tries to push the water away. They simply dance with each other, day after day, year after year. She said that her happiness came from learning how to be like the shore. She allowed her joys to come in like the rising tide, and she allowed her sorrows to go out like the ebbing water. She didn't try to keep the joy forever, and she didn't try to stop the sorrow from happening. By flowing with the natural cycles of life, she remained steady and whole. Our inner sanctuary is the shore, and our emotions are the waves. When we stop trying to control the ocean, we find that the dance itself is beautiful. This flowing with life is a form of deep listening. Most of us are so busy talking to ourselves and the world that we forget how to listen to the silence. In the sanctuary, we practice the art of being quiet enough to hear the subtle movements of our own soul. We listen to the way our body feels, the way our breath moves, and the way our heart responds to different thoughts. This listening is not about analyzing or judging, it is about witnessing. It is like sitting in a garden at dawn and watching the light slowly change the colors of the flowers. We don't have to do anything to make the light appear, we just have to be there to see it. This receptive state of mind is where true insights are born. When we stop searching for answers, the truth has a way of finding us. One of the greatest obstacles to this quietness is our attachment to our own stories. We all have a narrative about who we are, what has happened to us, and why we are the way we are. While these stories can provide a sense of identity, they can also become a prison. We start to believe that our past defines our future, and we repeat the same patterns of behavior out of a sense of loyalty to our old selves. In the sanctuary, we can begin to loosen the grip of these stories. We can see that they are just words and memories, not the reality of the present moment. We can choose to write a new chapter, one that is rooted in our current awareness rather than our past pain. This is the power of renewal that the sanctuary provides. It allows us to be born again in every moment, free from the weight of what has been. There was a master who once said that the secret to a peaceful mind is to be like a mirror. A mirror reflects everything that comes before it: a beautiful flower, a frightening face, a clear sky, or a dark cloud, but it is never changed by what it reflects. It doesn't hold on to the image of the flower once it is gone, and it doesn't try to avoid the image of the dark cloud. It simply remains clear and still, ready to reflect the next thing that appears. Our awareness is that mirror. The events of our lives pass before us, sometimes pleasant and sometimes painful, but our fundamental nature remains untouched. When we realize this, we stop being so afraid of our experiences. We know that no matter what happens, the mirror of our soul will remain whole. This sense of wholeness is not something we have to earn, it is our birthright. We often feel like we are fragmented or broken, as if we are missing some essential piece that would make us complete. We look for this piece in our careers, our relationships, and our achievements, but we never seem to find it. The sanctuary teaches us that we are already complete. The feeling of fragmentation is just a trick of the mind, a result of being too focused on the small details and losing sight of the big picture. When we step into the stillness of our inner world, we see that all the different parts of our lives, the successes, the failures, the joys, and the sorrows, are all contained within a single, unified field of awareness. We are the container, not the contents. Think of a large orchestra preparing to play a symphony. Before the music begins, there is a lot of noise as the musicians tune their instruments. Each person is focused on their own sound, and it can be quite chaotic and jarring. But then the conductor raises the baton, and suddenly all those individual sounds come together into a beautiful and harmonious whole. Our lives can often feel like that period of tuning loud, disconnected, and a bit overwhelming. But our inner sanctuary is the conductor. It provides the rhythm and the direction that allows the different parts of our life to harmonize. When we act from this centered place, our lives take on a sense of melody and purpose. We are no longer just making noise, we are creating music. There was a traveler who was walking across a vast desert, and he was beginning to feel the effects of the heat and the thirst. He saw a mirage of an oasis in the distance and started to run toward it, only to find that it disappeared as he got closer. He became desperate and started to curse the desert and the sun. Then, he remembered the advice of a wise elder who told him that in the middle of the desert, there is a path that only reveals itself when you stand perfectly still. He stopped running and sat down on the sand. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, letting the heat and the thirst just be there. After a while, he felt a slight breeze coming from a direction he hadn't noticed before. He followed the breeze and found a real well, hidden behind a small dune. The mirage was his desire, but the well was his reality. Our inner sanctuary is the well, and our distractions are the mirages. When we stop chasing what isn't there, we finally find what is. Finding the well requires a certain amount of discipline, but it is the discipline of love, not the discipline of force. It is the commitment to showing up for ourselves every day, even when we don't feel like it. It is like a parent caring for a child or a gardener tending to their plants. We do it because we know it is necessary for life and growth. Some days our practice will feel easy and inspired, and other days it will feel dry and difficult. Both kinds of days are important. The difficult days are often when we do the deepest work, learning how to stay present even when things aren't going our way. This consistency builds a reservoir of strength that we can draw from when life becomes truly challenging. In the mountains of the north, there was a legend of a stone that would turn to gold if it was touched by someone who had no greed in their heart. Many people tried to find the stone, bringing with them all sorts of sophisticated tools and measurements. But no matter how many stones they touched, nothing changed. One day, a young shepherd boy who had never heard the legend was sitting on a hill, watching his sheep. He picked up a stone just to feel its smooth texture and its coolness in the sun. He wasn't thinking about gold or wealth, he was just enjoying the moment. As he held the stone, it began to glow and transform into pure, shining gold. The boy was surprised, but he didn't try to take the gold, he just left it there and went back to his sheep. Our inner peace is like that stone. It transforms our life into something precious only when we stop trying to use it for our own gain. When we seek peace for its own sake, rather than as a way to get what we want, it becomes a permanent part of our being. As we dwell in this space, we become more aware of the interconnectivity of all things. We see that our actions have ripples that extend far beyond our immediate surroundings. A kind word spoken to a stranger might change their entire day, and that change might affect everyone they interact with. Similarly, a moment of anger can create a chain reaction of negativity. This realization doesn't make us feel burdened by responsibility, but rather empowered by it. We see that we have the opportunity to be a force for good in the world, simply by maintaining our own inner sanctuary. By staying peaceful, we are contributing to the peace of the collective. We are like a single candle in a dark room. Our light may be small, but it changes the entire atmosphere. There was a story of a great king who wanted to build the most magnificent temple in the world. He hired the best architects and builders, and he used the most expensive materials. But when the temple was finished, it felt cold and empty. No one wanted to go there to pray or to find comfort. The king was heartbroken and asked a wandering sage what was wrong. The sage told him that he had built a house for the body, but he had forgotten to build a house for the spirit. He told the king to go and sit in the forest for a month and listen to the sound of the wind. The king did as he was told, and when he returned, he didn't change a single stone of the temple, but he started to treat everyone who entered it with genuine kindness and respect. Suddenly, the temple felt warm and full of life. People started to flock to it from all over the kingdom. The sanctuary is not about the physical space we inhabit, but the quality of the spirit we bring into that space. We can bring this spirit of the sanctuary into our work, our hobbies, and our daily chores. We can work with a sense of dedication and care, seeing our tasks as a way to serve others and to express our own integrity. We can play with a sense of joy and abandonment, remembering the wonder we felt as children. We can even rest with a sense of full permission, knowing that our worth is not dependent on our productivity. When we integrate the qualities of the sanctuary into our active life, the boundary between the sacred and the mundane begins to disappear. Everything becomes an opportunity for mindfulness, and every moment becomes a prayer of presence. Imagine a large, old-fashioned clock with a heavy pendulum that swings back and forth. The pendulum is always moving, but at the very top of the clock, there is a central point that remains perfectly still. That still point is the source of the pendulum's movement and its rhythm. Without the stillness at the center, the clock would not be able to keep time. Our inner sanctuary is that still point. The world around us is like the swinging pendulum, constantly moving from one extreme to another, but we remain anchored in the stillness at the top. This allows us to move with the world without being thrown off balance. We can experience the highs and the lows of life while still maintaining our internal rhythm. There was a teacher who used to say that the most important thing is to remember to remember. We all have moments of clarity and peace, but we quickly forget them when we get caught up in the demands of our day. The practice of building an inner sanctuary is the practice of remembering who we really are. It is a constant returning to the truth. We can use everything as a reminder: the sound of a bird, the feeling of the wind, the taste of our food, or the look in someone's eyes. Each of these things can be a doorway that leads us back to our center. The more doors we create, the easier it becomes to stay home. In the village by the river, the people had a custom of lighting a small fire in a clay pot and letting it float down the stream on certain holidays. They believed that the fire represented their own spirit, and the river represented the flow of time. They watched as the tiny lights drifted away into the darkness, sometimes getting caught in the reeds and sometimes moving smoothly with the current. They knew that even when the light was out of sight, the fire was still burning inside the pot. Our inner sanctuary is that fire. Even when we feel like we are being swept away by the current of our lives, the light of our awareness is still burning deep within us. We just have to look for it. As we reach the end of this part of our conversation, let's take a moment to rest in the warmth of our own inner light. Feel it glowing in the center of your chest, a steady and unwavering flame. This light is your guide, your comfort, and your constant companion. It is the essence of your sanctuary. No matter where you go or what you do, this light is always with you. You don't have to fear the darkness, because you carry the light within yourself. You are a being of peace, a being of wisdom, and a being of infinite worth. Trust in your light, and it will always show you the way home. Building this internal home is a gradual and beautiful process, much like the way a coral reef grows over thousands of years. It starts with a single thought of kindness, a single breath of awareness, and a single decision to be present. These small actions accumulate, creating a structure that is both strong and delicate, providing a habitat for a vast array of inner experiences. We don't have to see the whole reef to know that it is growing. We just have to keep doing our part, day by day, moment by moment. The sanctuary is not a finished product, but a living and evolving part of who we are. It is the masterpiece of our life, and we are both the artist and the canvas. As you step back into the world, carry the feeling of this sanctuary with you. Let it inform the way you walk, the way you talk, and the way you look at the world. See everyone you meet as a fellow builder, each working on their own inner temple. Offer them the kindness and the space that you have found for yourself. In doing so, you will find that your own sanctuary grows even larger and more beautiful. Peace is not just a personal achievement, it is a collective offering. By being at peace, you are helping to heal the world. Trust in this power, and trust in the sanctuary of your own heart. Living within this quiet space allows us to witness the constant interplay between our internal expectations and the reality of the world around us. Most of our frustration arises not from events themselves, but from the rigid blueprints we try to impose on life. We have a specific idea of how our day should go, how our friends should behave, and even how we should feel. When life deviates from these plans, we feel like the walls of our peace are crumbling. But in the sanctuary of the heart, we learn the art of the flexible blueprint. We hold our plans lightly, like a handful of dry sand rather than a block of stone. If the wind blows and the sand shifts, we do not despair, we simply observe the new shape it has taken. This openness to the unexpected is where true resilience is born. It turns every interruption into an invitation and every detour into a discovery. We find that the most beautiful parts of our garden are often the ones we didn't plant ourselves, but those that arrived as seeds on the wind of chance. There is a story from a distant valley about an old potter who was known for creating jars that could keep water cool even in the heat of a desert noon. When a traveler asked him for the secret of his craft, the potter did not talk about the quality of the clay or the temperature of the kiln. He simply pointed to the empty space inside the jar. He said that the clay is just there to define the emptiness, and it is the emptiness that holds the water. If the jar were solid clay, it would be useless. Our inner sanctuary is that precious emptiness. We often spend so much time trying to fill our lives with knowledge, possessions, and achievements, thinking that these things will make us whole. But the true value of our being is in the capacity to be empty, to be open, and to be receptive. When we are empty of our own small ego and our constant demands, we can be filled with the vastness of the present moment. This emptiness is not a lack of something, but a presence of everything. This quality of openness changes the way we handle the mistakes we inevitably make. In the outside world, failure is often seen as a mark of shame or a reason to give up. But in the sanctuary, a mistake is simply a piece of information. It is like a bell that rings to tell us we have drifted off course. We listen to the sound without judging the bell. We don't have to beat ourselves up for being human. We simply acknowledge the drift and gently steer ourselves back toward the center. This self-compassion is the mortar that holds the stones of our sanctuary together. Without it, the structure becomes brittle and cold. When we are kind to ourselves in the face of our own flaws, we create a warmth that makes our inner home a place we actually want to stay. We stop being our own harshest critics and start being our own most supportive friends. In the Chronicles of the Mountain Sages, there is a legend of a man who carried a heavy mirror everywhere he went. He used it to look at the world behind him, afraid that he might miss something important if he only looked forward. Because he was always looking back, he stumbled over rocks and missed the beautiful vistas right in front of him. One day, he met a child who asked him why he was carrying such a heavy burden. The man explained his fear, and the child laughed, saying that the world behind him was already gone, and the only way to see the path was to look at where his feet were right now. The man realized the truth and shattered the mirror against a stone. For the first time, his arms felt light and his eyes were clear. Many of us carry the heavy mirrors of our past, constantly looking back at our regrets and our old identities. Within our inner refuge, we can finally put those mirrors down. We can trust that the path will reveal itself one step at a time, and that we don't need to see where we've been to know where we are going. This lightness of being allows us to engage with the world more playfully. We often take our roles and our responsibilities so seriously that we forget how to smile at the absurdity of it all. We become like actors who have forgotten they are in a play, convinced that every line of dialogue is a matter of life and death. When we step back into our sanctuary, we remember that we are the one watching the play, not just the one performing in it. We can see the humor in our own dramas and the gentle irony of our struggles. This doesn't mean we don't care, but that we care with a sense of perspective. We can do our best and work hard, while still maintaining a twinkle in our eye. This playfulness is a sign of a healthy spirit. It shows that we are no longer gripped by the fear of what might happen. We are free to enjoy the performance, knowing that the stage is safe. Imagine a large, old bridge made of stone that crosses a wide and powerful river. The bridge has stood for centuries because it was built with deep arches that allow the water to flow through. If the bridge were a solid wall, the pressure of the river would have knocked it down a long time ago. Its strength lies in its ability to let things pass. Our inner sanctuary is like those stone arches. We allow the river of emotions, news, and world events to flow through us without trying to block them. We feel the movement of the water, but we remain rooted in the earth. This allows us to stay standing even when the river rises and the current becomes strong. We find that we can witness the pain of the world and the joys of our neighbors with equal stability. We are a bridge that connects the personal to the universal, allowing the energy of life to move without being obstructed by our own resistance. There was a master who lived in a village where everyone was always in a hurry. One day, a young man stopped him and asked how he could find more time in his day. The master took him to a nearby well and asked him to look at the bucket as it went down into the dark. He said that the bucket doesn't find the water by moving faster, it finds the water by going deeper. He explained that we don't need more time, we need more depth. When we live on the surface, we are always running out of minutes and hours. But when we drop into the depth of our own being, we find that time expands. A single minute lived with full awareness is worth more than a day lived in a blur of distraction. Our inner sanctuary is the well that gives us access to this depth. It is where we go to find the eternal now, the space where time seems to stand still and we can finally catch our breath. Tending to this depth involves a regular practice of silence. In a world that is obsessed with noise and constant communication, choosing to be silent is a radical act of self-care. It is not just about not speaking, but about quieting the internal chatter that keeps us constantly stimulated. In the silence, we begin to notice the subtle textures of our own consciousness. We feel the vibration of our own life force. This silence is the language of the soul, and when we learn to speak it, we find that we are never truly lonely. We are in a constant, wordless conversation with the essence of all things. This connection gives us a sense of belonging that no social media or external validation can ever provide. We are at home in the universe because we are at home in ourselves. There is a story of a group of travelers who found a beautiful garden hidden behind a high wall. They wanted to stay there forever, so they started to build houses and shops inside the garden. Soon, the space was crowded and the flowers were trampled. The very thing they loved about the garden was destroyed by their attempt to own and manage it. One traveler, however, decided to live outside the wall and only visit the garden when he was quiet and humble. He found that the garden stayed beautiful for him because he never tried to change it. Our inner sanctuary is that hidden garden. We cannot manage it with our logical mind or build structures of control inside it. We can only enter it with a sense of reverence and let it be as it is. When we treat our inner world with this kind of respect, it remains a source of endless beauty and refreshment. As we spend more time in this state of reverence, our capacity for gratitude naturally expands. We stop taking the small miracles of life for granted. The taste of a fresh apple, the warmth of the sun on a winter day, or the sight of a bird in flight become sources of profound joy. We realize that we don't need something spectacular to happen to feel happy. The spectacular is happening all around us, all the time. Our sanctuary is where we go to sharpen our senses so we can perceive this constant stream of grace. Gratitude is the light that illuminates our inner home, making every corner feel warm and inviting. It is impossible to feel stressed or fearful when we are truly grateful, for the two states cannot exist in the same space. There was a teacher who told his students that the mind is like a clear bowl of water. When we are worried or angry, it is as if someone has dropped a handful of ink into the water, making it dark and cloudy. Many people try to get rid of the ink by stirring the water or trying to scoop it out, but this only makes the cloudiness spread. The teacher said that the only way to make the water clear again is to let it sit still. Eventually, the ink will settle to the bottom and the water will be as pure as it was before. Our practice is not to fight the ink of our difficult emotions, but to provide the stillness that allows them to settle. In the sanctuary of our heart, we have all the time in the world. We don't have to rush the process of clearing. We trust in the natural gravity of peace. This trust is what allows us to be truly present for others. When we are not busy trying to fix our own internal clouds, we can listen to someone else with our whole heart. We don't listen to respond or to give advice, we listen to understand. This kind of deep listening is one of the greatest gifts we can offer to another human being. It creates a space where they can feel seen and heard, which is often all they need to begin their own process of healing. Our sanctuary becomes a sanctuary for them as well, a place where they can put down their burdens for a few moments and find their own center. We become like a steady candle in a dark room, providing light without even trying. Think of a large forest during a windstorm. The tall trees at the edge take the full force of the wind, and they sway and creak under the pressure. But if you move deep into the center of the forest, the air is still and the ground is covered in a soft carpet of pine needles. The wind is still blowing above the canopy, and you can hear the roar of it in the leaves, but down on the floor, there is a deep and profound peace. Building an inner sanctuary is like growing our own internal forest. We develop a core that is so deep and so dense that even when the storms of life are raging at the edges, our center remains calm. We are not ignoring the storm, we are simply not being blown away by it. We have found the quiet place at the center of the woods. One of the most beautiful transformations that occurs as we cultivate this inner space is the softening of our heart. We start to see that the harshness we once used to protect ourselves was actually a barrier to our own happiness. We realize that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a profound strength. It takes great courage to keep the heart open in a world that can be difficult. In our sanctuary, we find the safety we need to be vulnerable. We can let our guards down and experience the full range of our human emotions without being overwhelmed. This softness allows us to connect with others in a way that is honest and deep, creating a life that is rich with meaning and love. There was a story about a man who found a cocoon and saw a small butterfly struggling to emerge. Out of kindness, he took a pair of scissors and snipped the edge of the cocoon to help the butterfly. The butterfly emerged easily, but its wings were shriveled and it could never fly. The man didn't realize that the struggle to get through the narrow opening of the cocoon was necessary to force the fluid from the butterfly's body into its wings. By taking away the struggle, he had taken away the butterfly's strength. Our inner sanctuary gives us the perspective to see that our own struggles are often the very things that give us the strength to fly. We stop wishing for a life with no challenges and start trusting that every difficulty is preparing us for something greater. We meet our struggles with a sense of purpose, knowing that they are the forge in which our character is shaped. This sense of purpose gives our lives a steady direction, like a compass pointing north. Even when we are in the middle of a thick fog and can't see the path, we can look at our inner compass and know which way to go. We are guided by our values and our integrity rather than by the fleeting opinions of the world. This internal guidance system is a vital part of our sanctuary. It keeps us from being swayed by every new trend or every piece of gossip. We know who we are and what we stand for, and this gives us a sense of peace that nothing can disturb. We are no longer searching for ourselves in the reflections of others, we have found ourselves in the stillness of our own being. Imagine a large mountain lake on a perfectly still morning. The water is like a mirror, reflecting the sky and the mountains with such clarity that it's hard to tell where the earth ends and the water begins. If someone throws a small pebble into the lake, ripples spread out in every direction, momentarily distorting the reflection. But the lake doesn't fight the ripples, it simply holds them until they fade away, and then it returns to its natural state of stillness. Our awareness is that lake. The events of our lives are like pebbles being thrown into the water. They create ripples of emotion and thought, but they cannot change the fundamental nature of the lake itself. When we recognize this, we stop being so afraid of the pebbles. We know that the stillness is always there, just beneath the surface, waiting for us to return. As we continue on this path, we find that the boundaries between our sanctuary and the rest of the world begin to blur. We no longer see the world as a place we have to escape from, but as a place we can bring our peace into. We start to see the sacred in the ordinary. The simple act of pouring a glass of water, the way the light falls across the floor, or the sound of the rain on the roof all become moments of deep spiritual significance. We are no longer waiting for a special time or place to be mindful. Our whole life has become a meditation. This is the ultimate goal of building an inner sanctuary, to realize that there is no separation between the inner and the outer, and that everything is a manifestation of the same infinite peace. There was a master who was asked what the most difficult part of the spiritual path was. He smiled and said that the most difficult part is realizing that there is nowhere to go and nothing to find. He explained that we spend our whole lives searching for something that is already here. We are like a person sitting in their own house, crying that they are homeless. Building an inner sanctuary is simply the process of stopping the search and realizing we are already home. It is the end of the long journey of the soul, and the beginning of a life lived in the fullness of the present. We are no longer chasing the horizon, we have become the horizon. In the quiet moments of the night, when the world is finally still, we can feel the truth of this peace more clearly. It is a soft, humming vibration that resides in the very marrow of our bones. It is the peace that surpasses all understanding, the peace that has been with us since the moment of our birth and will be with us until our final breath. This is our true sanctuary, our eternal home. By turning our attention toward it every day, we are simply acknowledging the most profound truth of our existence. We are at peace, we are safe, and we are exactly where we are supposed to be. Trust in this peace, and let it carry you through all the days of your life. As we settle into this deep realization, we find that our words and actions begin to carry a new weight and clarity. We no longer speak just to fill the silence or act out of a need to be busy. Our contributions to the world become more intentional and more effective because they are rooted in a stable center. We are like a gardener who works with the natural rhythm of the seasons, knowing when to plant and when to harvest. This alignment with the natural flow of life brings a sense of effortless ease to everything we do. We find that we can accomplish more with less effort because we are no longer fighting against the current. We are flowing with the great river of existence, and our inner sanctuary is the boat that carries us safely on its journey. There was a story about a traveler who was caught in a heavy snowstorm and was beginning to lose his way. He saw a tiny light in the distance and struggled toward it, eventually finding a small, warm cabin. The owner of the cabin welcomed him in and gave him a hot bowl of soup. The traveler was so grateful that he stayed for several days, resting and regaining his strength. When the storm finally passed and he was ready to leave, he asked the owner how he could ever repay him. The owner smiled and said that the only way to repay him was to keep his own light burning, so that the next traveler caught in a storm might also find a way home. This is the ultimate purpose of our inner sanctuary. We build it not just for ourselves, but to keep the light of peace burning for everyone. By staying centered and calm, we become the light that helps others find their own way through the storms of life. This is the greatest legacy we can leave, and it is a work that never truly ends. This internal illumination is not a flicker that depends on the quality of the oil in our lamp, but a radiant glow that comes from the very core of our existence. When we finally stop searching for external mirrors to tell us who we are, we begin to see our true reflection in the stillness of our own soul. It is like a person who has spent years looking for their glasses only to realize they were already wearing them. Everything we see and experience is filtered through the clarity of our inner sanctuary. This clarity allows us to move through the world with a sense of gentle fearlessness. We are no longer afraid of being misunderstood or losing our social standing because we have found a value within ourselves that the world did not give and therefore cannot take away. We stand on a foundation that is not built on the shifting sands of public opinion, but on the bedrock of our own direct experience of peace. There is an old story of a stonecutter who was dissatisfied with his life. He saw a king and wished to be a king, and his wish was granted. Then he saw the sun and wished to be the sun, thinking it was more powerful than a king. He became the sun, but then a cloud covered his light, so he wished to be a cloud. Then he saw that the wind blew the cloud away, so he became the wind. But as the wind, he could not move a giant stone. So he wished to be the stone, the most powerful thing of all. But as he stood there as a stone, he felt a sharp tool chipping away at his surface. He looked down and saw a humble stonecutter. This cycle reminds us that we often look outside ourselves for power and peace, moving from one role to another, only to realize that the most profound transformation happens right where we started. The power is not in being the sun or the wind, it is in the quiet awareness of the one who witnesses it all. Our inner sanctuary is the place where we reclaim this original power. It is the seat of the witness, the part of us that remains unchanged whether we are playing the role of a parent, a worker, a friend, or a stranger. When we reside in this seat, we no longer feel the need to be more than we are. We find that the most extraordinary thing we can be is simply human, fully present and fully awake. This realization brings a sense of deep relaxation to our body and our mind. We can let go of the tension of trying to be someone special. We find that in our ordinariness, there is a hidden radiance that is much more beautiful than any artificial persona we could ever create. This is the beauty of authenticity, a flower that only blooms in the garden of the inner sanctuary. In the traditions of the ancient builders, there was a technique for creating arches that could support incredible weight without using any mortar. Each stone was carved with such precision that they leaned against one another, and the weight of the entire structure was held together by a single stone at the very top called the keystone. If the keystone were removed, the entire arch would collapse. In our lives, mindfulness is that keystone. It is the one thing that holds all the different pieces of our experience together. Without mindfulness, our relationships, our work, and our health can feel like a pile of disconnected stones. But with a centered awareness, everything finds its place and contributes to the strength of the whole. Our sanctuary is where we go to polish this keystone and ensure it is firmly in place. This sense of structural integrity allows us to be generous without feeling depleted. When we have an infinite reservoir of peace inside, we don't have to ration our kindness or our patience. We can give freely to anyone we encounter, knowing that the source is inexhaustible. We are like a well that is fed by a deep underground spring. The more water people take, the more the spring flows. This generosity is the natural expression of a healthy inner life. We don't do it because we want to be seen as good people, but because it is the most natural thing in the world to share what we have found. Our peace becomes a contagious force, softening the hearts of those around us and creating a ripple effect of compassion that goes beyond our own understanding. There was a traveler who was once invited into the home of a master musician. The traveler noticed that even when the musician wasn't playing his instrument, he moved with a certain rhythm and grace, as if he were always listening to a melody that no one else could hear. When asked about it, the musician said that the music doesn't stop just because he puts down his bow. The silence between the notes is also part of the symphony. He said that he spent years practicing until the music became a part of his breathing and his heartbeat. Building an inner sanctuary is much like this. At first, it feels like a separate activity we do for a few minutes a day. But eventually, the quality of peace we find in the silence begins to permeate our entire lives. Our movements become more graceful, our words become more melodic, and even our silence becomes a beautiful contribution to the world. This integration of peace into our daily life is the ultimate form of art. We are no longer just consumers of life, we are creators. Every choice we make is a stroke of the brush on the canvas of our day. We choose the colors of our reactions and the texture of our thoughts. When we act from our sanctuary, our life becomes a masterpiece of presence. We see that there is no detail too small to be treated with care. The way we fold our clothes, the way we listen to a story, and the way we walk across a room all become expressions of our inner state. This attention to detail is not a burden, but a way of honoring the sacredness of life. It is how we stay awake to the magic that is constantly unfolding around us. Imagine a large tree standing in the middle of a field during the change of seasons. In the autumn, the tree lets go of its leaves without any struggle. It doesn't try to hold on to the green or the gold, it simply lets them fall to the earth, where they will turn into soil for the coming spring. The tree knows that letting go is a necessary part of growth. Many of us spend our lives trying to hold on to things that are already passing away, creating a lot of unnecessary suffering. In the sanctuary of the heart, we practice the wisdom of the tree. We learn to let go of our old identities, our past mistakes, and our attachments to certain outcomes. We trust that the winter of our life is just a season of rest, and that something new will always bloom when the time is right. This trust is what gives us the courage to be still in a world that is constantly demanding action. We are often told that if we aren't doing something, we are wasting time. But in the silence of our inner home, we realize that the most important things happen when we are doing nothing at all. It is in the silence that our insights are born, our wounds are healed, and our spirit is replenished. Being still is not an escape from life, it is a way of going deeper into life. It is how we reconnect with the source of our vitality. When we emerge from our sanctuary after a period of stillness, we find that we have more energy and more clarity to do the things that truly need to be done. We work with the world, not against it. There was a student who was frustrated because he felt like he was constantly losing his peace as soon as he stepped out of his meditation. He asked his teacher how he could stay peaceful all day long. The teacher told him to take a small bowl of water and carry it through the busy marketplace without spilling a single drop. The student focused all his attention on the water, moving slowly and mindfully, ignoring the noise and the distractions around him. When he returned, the teacher asked him what he had seen in the market. The student said he had seen nothing but the water in the bowl. The teacher smiled and said that this is how we live. The water is our inner peace, and the marketplace is the world. We don't have to ignore the world, but we must never take our eyes off the peace we carry within us. As we become more skilled at carrying our bowl of water, we find that we can eventually look at the world around us without losing our center. We can see the beauty and the pain, the joy and the sorrow, and remain steady through it all. Our sanctuary is not a place where we hide from reality, but the very foundation that allows us to face reality with an open heart. We stop being afraid of the intensity of life because we know that we have a space within us that can hold it all. This capacity for holding is the hallmark of a mature spirit. We become like the sky, which allows the clouds and the storms to pass through it without being harmed or diminished. The sky is always clear, even when it is covered by the darkest clouds. Think of the sound of a large bell ringing in the distance. The sound travels through the air, reaching everyone in its path, bringing a moment of pause and reflection. Our inner sanctuary is like that bell. When we are truly at peace, our presence has a resonant quality that touches others without us having to say a word. People feel a sense of calm when they are near us, even if they don't know why. We provide a space for them to breathe a little easier and to remember their own capacity for peace. This is how we change the world. It is not through grand speeches or complex theories, but through the simple and profound resonance of our own healed hearts. We are the bell, and the world is the air that carries our song. In the mountains, there is a bird that builds its nest in the highest peaks, far above the reach of any predator. From this vantage point, the bird can see the entire valley below, including the movements of the clouds and the flow of the rivers. It is safe and secure, yet it is intimately connected to everything happening below. Our inner sanctuary gives us this same perspective. We can rise above the petty dramas and the temporary worries of our daily lives and see the bigger picture. We see how everything is connected and how every experience is part of a larger journey. This mountaintop view allows us to move through our challenges with a sense of wisdom and equanimity. We know that the storm in the valley will pass, and that the sun is always shining above the clouds. As we dwell in this high place, we find that our sense of compassion grows to include all living beings. We see that everyone is struggling with their own clouds and their own storms. We stop judging and start empathizing. We see that the anger and the greed in the world are just signs of people who have lost touch with their own inner sanctuary. This understanding doesn't make us feel superior, it makes us feel a deep desire to help. We want to be a lighthouse that shows them the way back to their own center. We realize that our peace is not truly complete until we share it with others. This is the ultimate fulfillment of our practice, to turn our internal refuge into a source of universal love. There was a master who once said that the only thing we truly own is our state of mind. Everything else, our house, our money, our reputation, even our own body, is just on loan from the universe and will eventually be returned. But the peace we cultivate within ourselves is something that belongs to us forever. It is the only treasure we can take with us wherever we go. By investing our time and energy into building our inner sanctuary, we are securing our most valuable asset. We are building a wealth that cannot be measured by any bank and a security that cannot be threatened by any external force. We are becoming truly rich in the only way that matters. Imagine a beautiful piece of fabric that has been woven with many different colors of thread. Each thread is important, and if one is pulled, the whole pattern is affected. Our inner sanctuary is the loom that holds these threads in place. It provides the tension and the structure that allow us to create a life of beauty and meaning. When we take care of the loom, the weaving becomes easy and joyful. We can experiment with new patterns and new colors, knowing that the foundation is strong. Our life becomes a vibrant expression of our inner world, a tapestry that is unique and irreplaceable. In the quiet of the sanctuary, we can feel the presence of all those who have walked this path before us. We are not alone in our search for peace. We are part of a long and noble lineage of seekers, sages, and ordinary people who have discovered the truth of their own being. Their wisdom is like a wind at our backs, pushing us forward and giving us strength when we feel tired. We are carrying the torch of awareness for the next generation, making the path a little easier for those who will come after us. This connection to the past and the future gives our lives a sense of historical significance. We are part of the great awakening of the human spirit. There is a feeling of immense gratitude that arises when we realize that the sanctuary we have been building is actually a gift from the universe itself. We didn't create the silence or the peace, we simply discovered them. We were given the capacity for awareness and the ability to feel love. Everything we need has been provided for us since the beginning. Our only task is to say yes to these gifts and to make space for them in our lives. This realization humbles us and fills us with a sense of wonder. We are like children who have discovered a hidden treasure in our own backyard. We realize that we are deeply loved and supported by a mysterious and benevolent force. As we conclude this long and heartfelt journey of words, let us return to the most important thing, the simple reality of this moment. Feel the air moving in and out of your lungs. Feel the heartbeat in your chest. Notice the space around you and the silence within you. This is your home. This is your sanctuary. You have always been here, and you will always be here. There is nowhere else you need to go and nothing else you need to be. You are whole, you are complete, and you are at peace. Trust in this truth, and let it guide you in every breath and every step. The sanctuary is not a destination, it is the very essence of who you are. May you carry this peace with you as you move through the world. May your words be soft and your actions be kind. May your heart remain open and your spirit remain steady. Remember that you are a beacon of light in a world that sometimes feels dark. Keep your inner lamp burning brightly, and you will never lose your way. The journey is beautiful, and you are the journey itself. Walk with grace, live with love, and rest in the profound silence of your own magnificent heart. Everything is as it should be, and you are exactly where you belong. Peace, peace, and only peace. The true nature of this inner refuge reveals itself fully when we stop viewing it as a place to hide and start seeing it as the very source of our engagement with reality. It is like the roots of a great banyan tree that reach deep into the dark earth to find the hidden moisture, allowing the branches above to stretch wide and provide shade to everyone who passes by. Without that deep, silent connection to the underground source, the tree would wither in the heat of the noon sun. Our daily practice of returning to the center is that root system. It is how we stay hydrated in a world that can often feel parched by greed, anger, and confusion. When we are well rooted, we do not need to demand that the world change for us to feel okay. We carry our own nourishment with us, and this makes us incredibly resilient. We can stand in the middle of a drought and still have green leaves, because our source is not dependent on the rain from above, but on the spring from within. There was a master who once lived in a small hut near a very busy bridge. Every day, thousands of people would cross the bridge, shouting, arguing, and rushing toward their destinations. One day, a traveler stopped and asked the master how he could possibly find any peace living so close to such a noisy place. The master invited the man inside and offered him a cup of water. He told the man to listen not to the noise on the bridge, but to the silence inside the cup. He said that the noise of the world is like the wind blowing over the top of a mountain. It makes a lot of sound, but it cannot move the mountain itself. He said that the peace we seek is the mountain, and the life we lead is the wind. If we identify with the wind, we will always be restless. But if we identify with the mountain, the wind becomes just a part of the scenery. The sanctuary of the heart is that mountain, standing firm and silent regardless of how hard the wind of circumstance may blow. This mountain-like stability allows us to look at our own mortality with a sense of calm and curiosity rather than fear. We spend so much of our lives trying to outrun time, as if we could somehow bargain for a few more minutes by being busier or more productive. But in the space of the sanctuary, we see that time is just another river flowing through the landscape of our awareness. We realize that the part of us that is aware of time is not itself subject to time. This is a profound and life-changing insight. It means that we can enjoy the beauty of a sunset without the sadness of knowing it will end, because we have found something within us that is timeless. We start to value the quality of our presence more than the quantity of our days. We live more deeply, more fully, and more lovingly because we are no longer afraid of the end of the story. We know that the essence of the book is not in the pages, but in the meaning they carry. In the old legends, there was a weaver who was tasked with creating a garment for the spirit of the wind. She spent many years trying to find the strongest silk and the most vibrant dyes, but every time the wind blew, the garment would simply blow away. Finally, she stopped trying to catch the wind and instead started to weave with the silence that exists between the gusts. She created a garment made of pure awareness, so light and so fine that the wind could pass right through it without moving a single thread. The wind was so pleased that it stayed with the weaver for the rest of her life, bringing her the scents of distant flowers and the songs of foreign lands. This story teaches us that the way to handle the volatile forces of life is not to build walls or to try to trap them, but to become so transparent that they can pass through us without leaving a scratch. Our inner sanctuary is the loom on which we weave this transparency. This transparency is what allows us to be truly compassionate. When we are no longer protecting a small, fragile ego, we can afford to be open to the pain of others. We don't feel the need to judge them or to distance ourselves from their suffering to feel safe. We see their pain as our own, and our peace as theirs. We become like a clear window that lets the light in for everyone to see. Our life becomes a testament to the fact that it is possible to be aware of the darkness and still be a creature of light. This is not a naive optimism, but a grounded and courageous choice to focus on the good, the true, and the beautiful. It is the ultimate expression of our human dignity. Think of a mother bird sitting on her eggs in a nest during a heavy rain. She doesn't complain about the water or try to fly away to find a dry place. She simply stays where she is, spreading her wings wide to protect the life that is waiting to be born. She is cold and wet, but she is also perfectly at peace because she knows exactly what she is doing and why she is doing it. Her sanctuary is her purpose. When we build our inner home, we are protecting the potential for wisdom and love within ourselves. We are the mother bird, and the eggs are the seeds of our own awakening. We stay present through the storms of our emotions and the rains of our difficulties, knowing that every moment of endurance is helping those seeds to grow. This patience is a form of deep love for ourselves and for the world. There was a story about a king who lost his way in a forest and found a small temple that was completely empty. There were no statues, no incense, and no scriptures. He stayed there for one night, and when he woke up, he felt more refreshed and alive than he had in years of living in his magnificent palace. He asked the monk who cared for the temple what the secret was, and the monk replied that the temple was not empty, but full of space. He said that the palace was too full of things, and when a house is too full of things, there is no room for the king. In our inner sanctuary, we clear out the furniture of our opinions, the decorations of our past successes, and the clutter of our future plans. We make room for our own soul to sit down and rest. We find that the more space we have, the more truly we can inhabit our own life. This spaciousness is the greatest luxury we can afford. It gives us the room to breathe, the room to think, and the room to feel. We are no longer crowded by our own expectations. We can move through our day with a sense of ease, as if we were walking through a vast and beautiful cathedral. Every task we perform, no matter how small, becomes an act of worship. We wash the vegetables with the same care we would use to wash a sacred relic. We speak to a child with the same reverence we would use to speak to a great teacher. By bringing the quality of the sanctuary into our actions, we transform the mundane into the sacred. We realize that there is no such thing as an ordinary moment. There are only moments that we are either awake to or asleep through. Imagine a large, old-fashioned clock that has stopped ticking. The hands are still, the gears are silent, and the pendulum is at rest. In that stillness, the clock is not broken. It is simply experiencing its own existence without the pressure of having to measure anything. Our inner sanctuary is that state of being where the ticking of our mental clock stops. We are no longer measuring our worth by how much we have accomplished or how far we have come. We are simply being. In this state of pure being, we find a satisfaction that is deeper than any achievement can provide. We find that we are enough, just as we are, in the silence of the now. This is the ultimate rest, the rest that does not require sleep, but only awareness. There was a traveler who had spent his whole life searching for the edge of the world. He walked across continents and sailed across oceans, always looking for the place where the sky met the earth. One day, he reached a high cliff overlooking a vast and endless sea. He sat down and watched the horizon for many hours, waiting for a sign. Finally, he realized that the edge of the world was not a physical place he could reach, but the very spot where he was standing. He saw that the horizon was always moving with him, and that he was always at the center of his own universe. He understood that he didn't need to travel anywhere to find the truth. He just had to look at what was right in front of him. Our inner sanctuary is that center. It is the place from which we view the world, and it is the only place where we can ever truly be at peace. The search for peace ends where it began, within the quiet heart of the seeker. As we walk back into the world from this deep exploration, we carry with us a new sense of quiet confidence. We know that the sanctuary we have built is not a fragile thing that can be easily destroyed. It is a part of us, woven into our very being. We have become the architects of our own internal environment. We know how to cultivate the light when things feel dark, and how to find the stillness when things feel chaotic. This mastery over our internal world is the most important skill we will ever learn. It allows us to be a source of stability and comfort for everyone we meet. We are no longer just people looking for peace, we are people who embody peace. The journey of the soul is like a circle that leads us back to where we started, but with a new understanding and a deeper appreciation. We return to our daily lives, our families, and our work, but we see them through eyes that have been washed clean by the silence of the sanctuary. We see the beauty in the struggle, the grace in the difficulty, and the love in every interaction. We find that the sanctuary was never a place to escape to, but the very foundation upon which we build a meaningful and joyful life. We are home, and we have always been home. Trust in the silence that you have found. Let it be your guide and your companion. When the world becomes too loud, simply close your eyes for a moment and return to that quiet space. Feel the warmth of your own presence and the steady beat of your own heart. Remember that you are a being of infinite worth and that you carry a masterpiece of peace within you. You are the sanctuary, and the sanctuary is you. In this realization, all conflict ends and the long journey of the soul finds its rest. Walk in peace, live in love, and be the light that the world so deeply needs.